by Garofoli. So as you can tell, there are plenty of sprinters that have made the trip here. Not normally they would expect to be able to function on the highest stage. This was sign on this morning, and I've got to tell you that the temperature gauge is already climbing. The riders and the fans were seeking the shade. It's going to be hot. Now, yesterday we had some heat stroke to deal with, and that was in the higher ground, don't forget. Well, today we're kind of pan flat once we've dealt with a few valleys, and by the time that we get to our intermediate sprint, it'll be the wide open plain that guides us to Sevilla. So how long would it take for a breakaway to form? Yesterday we went a full sort of 18-20 kilometres before indeed it was established on the first category 2 test. Today, well, would it be a question of somebody just falling off the front to provide our breakaway? And the answer, I've got to tell you, is yes. Extremadura heading to Andalusia, and it is traditionally a very hot part of the world. You can see it from the landscape here. It's absolutely scorched. In parts of southern Portugal and Spain, the land actually turns to almost terracotta because it's been baked, the colour of the roofs that you see here. Well, it is baking hot yet again. There's no hurry in the peloton just for now to catch a two-man breakaway that have established themselves up the road. They've got 4 minutes and 40. Well, it was almost like they fell off a cliff being pushed by the peloton. He said, off you go, we'll see you later. And so it is that we have a modest series of climbs, sort of rolling terrain. That maximum gap of 4 minutes and 40 has actually been pared back over the last few kilometres to 4 minutes, but it's hardly a chase. I think it's possibly the peloton just trying to generate a bit of wind. Today, well, you can see the cordons here. They're not exactly billowing. We may get wind up to about 15, possibly 20 kilometres per hour. It's going to be a cross headwind as we inexorably head south towards Sevilla. But we also head towards higher temperatures, which will be Sevilla. Sorry for the pun. 127.7, wishful thinking. 3 minutes and 35. It's been pared back even more. Shauna, it's a thankless task being up the road, but yet again our two faithful teams to boot up the road, Kern Farmer and Euskaltel Euskadi, find themselves with that duty.
Yes, it's been the same every day, isn't it? You know, the teams that get the wildcard invitation, they feel obliged to, try and do something and make the race a little bit interesting, because without those two guys, well, then the peloton would be all together and they'd be just riding along probably at an easier pace. So they have to control the two out front and not allow them to gain many minutes. So yeah, at least there's some pace in it, but this is going to be a long, difficult day once again. As you mentioned, Carlton, the temperatures we can see there, the riders trying to keep cool here, and my God, 43 degrees. We had Laura Messinger mention for the later in the day as we go towards the finish here. This is real energy sapping stuff. And when you're going along at this pace, you say, oh well, they're not riding that hard, but with this scorching hot weather, it is very energy sapping and draining, and this will have consequences as we go on as well. And depending on how many days we get, as we can see here, a little bit of a hosing down here to try and cool the riders down. But these are two brave souls to go off out here with this, weather conditions, the distance to go, and that, it's only a matter of time you'll be allowed out there, because the sprinters teams are going to control once again today. Very few opportunities in this belt, as we talked about, and this is one of the last days for a bit of time. And as the race goes on, of course, it's more difficult to control as well, because teams might not be complete and there will be more riders wanting to go to the breakaways over the more undulating days.
Oh, as you see, the heat has all kinds of impacts. It may well interfere with a few pictures today, because exponentially, for every degree above 40 Celsius that you experience, it's such an unfamiliar temperature range to be within that human beings sense that for every degree after 40, it's gone up by 3 or 4 degrees. It feels even hotter in comparison to yesterday, Sean, and it's only going to get worse.
Yes, well, it's, you can see there the riders, you know, they're really suffering here. And when you're moving along on a bike, of course, and it's warm weather, for our standards it's 25 degrees, which would be very warm. UK, Ireland, maybe Northern Europe, that is, you know, lovely when you're on a bike, because you create that breeze as well when you're going along at 35 kilometers per hour. You get that cooling effects. But here, you know, it's like you open the oven after being on for 4 or 5 hours. You get that just heat, you know, blowing into your face, and that's what it feels like here on the bike. And you know, you don't get any cooling effect at all. It's just a matter of trying and keep the body to a cooler temperature as possible. And I mean as possible, because it is difficult to keep the temperature down. And we did hear yesterday riders suffering from that, you know, sunstroke. And open, you know, roads here, as we can see, they're out in the very open here, no shelter whatsoever on those roads. Oh, this is a real test for all the riders in the peloton.
Very much so. I don't know how many bidons we're going to be going through today, but I imagine it's a truckload. You saw Charmin Juristi up towards the front there, well, at the front, just beckoning on the crowd. Sucker for punishment, I think you might say. Well, wind as well at this, when we're at this kind of temperature, can actually feel like you're standing in front of a blowtorch. You have to take care. It's not a day where you'd normally reach for the bike, and we are nudging up towards that UCI protocol, Sean, where if we hit, I mean, we're going to be about 2 Celsius away from the race being shortened, and, you know, just for the well-being of the riders.
Yes, and the problem arises, of course, you know, when you start a little bit early in the day, although we're not starting that early here. As we can see, the start today was, you know, 13:20, so 12:20 UK time, Irish time, so it was, you know, getting quite warm, but it's not the warmest part of the day. So the organisers, you know, they had that advantage. Okay, for the start it's okay, but as you go on to the into the stage on the road, it gets warmer in the afternoon. But then it becomes a difficult one as well to, you know, call the race off. How do you do that? How do you get from A to B? You have to, you know, get the riders transported, and the buses are going to head all of that. So unless it gets really over the allowed temperature, you know, the organisers, they don't like stopping the race or shortening the race at all. And we've seen that many times as well, with, you know, severe weather conditions, cold, ice, and that dangerous conditions. We've seen the Giro many times where they, you know, try and push the riders to do all the stage. We had it this year, we had it last year on the Giro. Organisers want to go to the start because start is paying money, and they have all the route with, you know, the police and that. So it is a complicated one. It's not like when you have an event in a stadium, you can stop it for a while and you get the players out an hour or 2 later. Spectators can go and have a beer. Here it's not so easy to stand on the roadside, and I don't think there'll be many souls on the roadside today with this temperature we have got. Absolutely.
Passing by several castles today, one of which is the Santa Ola de Cala. Been around since 1296. We have the Castello de las Torres, Castle of the Bulls. Don't know how they put it together without thumbs, but anyway. That was 15th or 16th century. Nobody's quite sure when it was officially called a castle. No longer a stockade. And the De Cala, which looks incredibly well preserved, I must admit, coming a little bit later, in the 16th century, formerly used as a monastery. These days, apparently there's a cafe in there, and you can go and enjoy yourself. Well, wherever you are, you're going to be seeking a little bit of air conditioning on a day like this. And Sean, stories coming in from T-Rex Quickstep. They needed yesterday some help, and they got it from a kindly quarter from a Spanish team who had hoped to be here.
Yes, we could see that, and the riders were very thankful to the team who lent in the bus, who are not in this race here. And
yes, Burgos.
Burgos, yeah, BH, and yeah, it's yesterday I think they had the problem. We did see at the start, you know, they had to just get by with the team cars and the team vans, and then they were given the bus by the team, by Burgos BH, and it will be very well welcome because of the conditions here, so warm at the start. And we know the teams, they have to get to the start at a time, because there's all this protocol now where you have to go to the podium with the full team together to sign on, and that starts quite a long time before the race actually rolls out. So you have to be there quite early, probably an hour and a half at least, before we have the official neutralised start. So you need to stay cool, and the bus is more important in those conditions we're getting here at the moment.
Yes, it was a rather kindly lady as well who owns a bed and breakfast, allowed the team to go and change, because Landa did apparently much of the negotiation. And the team themselves...
Jersey.
She probably did. And the team were really quite effusive in their thanks, actually, not only to the lady but also to Burgos BH for lending them the bus. The coach driver himself for Burgos had to come back from holiday in France. It was a family holiday. They wasn't expected to be on duty, and all of a sudden he's driving a bus for an entirely other team. But he seemed to be happy in that duty as well, Sean. So a lot of favours been handed out, and a lot of grateful comments as well on social media, and that sort of thing never gets forgotten. Quickstep will always be in the debt of Burgos, I think.
Yes, well, we might see some of the Burgos team riders getting into Patrick Lefebvre's team on the strength of this. You never know, but yes, certainly the Burgos BH bus driver, he was happy to come back from his holidays, as you mentioned, Carlton, and to be driving the team of Mikel Landa, of course. I think that will be a big thing for him. He'd be loved to be doing that, and the other riders as well within the team of Soudal. So he will be really happy for the number of days. But we hear that a lot with buses now. Even the big teams who have very, very modern buses, maybe 2 or 3 years old, and I'm hearing it a lot from different people, different directors, sportives, mechanics. You hear about it. We don't get it all the time where there is a problem with the bus, and it's amazing that it continues on, but this is not a good timing here with the weather conditions to have that at all.
Quite a few lumpy backs here, and it's all down to the little socks of ice that they have, the nylon bags of ice that go down the back of the neck. Strange shapes. 4 minutes and 14. They've been through a zone, a feed zone, but really it's a cooling zone. You saw the fire hydrants, or the fire hoses, just being turned out for the riders to go through. In the past, Sean, we've had very, very hot weather, and particularly in things like cyclocross and mountain biking, they actually have produced mist tunnels which give you a fine spray, and you can actually choose to ride through them. I think the Vuelta actually had those once. I can't remember them being hired for use ever since. Probably a costly affair, I imagine. But do you think there's a place for such a thing, especially as we're now doing a lot of racing in the Middle East? I know that comes at the beginning of the year where the temperatures aren't so intense, but it can be a factor.
Yes, it can be a factor, but I think in the Middle East in the early part of the season, and down in Oz as well, of course, when we have the Tour down under.
That's probably hot. Yeah.
Very hot down there, but again, not anything like we're getting. If we get plus 40 here today, well then I don't think we get that in the early part of the season in those races. And yeah, it's a difficult one here because you're out on the road and you're going from A to B, where in mountain biking or whatever you're doing laps and you're coming around every number of minutes, so you can go through that that area where there is a spray of cold water, so it does help a lot, and it's easy to do. Unfortunately here it's a difficult one to manage, but I remember hearing from the riders that were taking part in the Tour of Portugal a number of years ago. The fire brigade was out many days, and it was always in August, and of course you can imagine how hot it can be. We're just after coming out of Portugal, and every day on the road as you go through the villages, and there were teammates of mine from the team that I was in, they said the fire brigade was in villages and was just hosing the riders that they went through villages all the time because it was 40 degrees. And I remember in the Tour of France on 1 or 2 occasions we did get close to 40, and my God, that was, you know, a really difficult one to get through. And for me, as an Irish guy coming from colder conditions, it was horrible.
Well, you got through it okay, thank heaven, and I hope today we get through safely as well. A little bit of an unspin here as you take on yet more bottles. Got to remember to feed as well on a day like today, but really it's about getting the cold ones in, as you can see. Just going to wait to welcome back our wider cycling fraternity as Bahrain victorious as well, just to get themselves sorted out. Quite a few others as well, just largely hunting fluids, as you can see, and hardly enough to take too many on today. Exactly the opposite is likely to be the case. Just under 120 kilometres remaining then, and that gap's gone back up again. Gap swelling to those out front, the two brave souls who've taken it on today. It's up to just shy of 4.5 minutes. It's kind of been around that margin on several occasions. They've been over the highest peak of the day, 675 metres above sea level, so nothing too much to shout about. Sevilla itself, well, that's not that high above sea level, although well inland. Landlocked city, still got a port though, some big rivers and canals that service it, but nonetheless nothing you can really go and jump in, as I'm sure they would wish to. The heat today is going to be a big talking point, but so was yesterday, Sean, and indeed our first trip to the high ground. And to be honest, some of the gaps that we had amongst the favourites, they were really quite significant and more bruising than I thought they would be.
Well, I talked about that yesterday. I was forecasting there would be some riders that would, you know, be really in difficulty because such a difficult final finish here with the gradient. You know, yesterday it was a horrible one. First day in the really big mountains that you can talk about. It was going to, you know, maybe have an effect on riders much more than you would normally expect, and there were quite a number of riders in that situation. And yeah, that is the problem. Like, you can lose a minute and a half or 2 minutes. That's quite a lot of very, very, you know, great climbers, guys who are going for the general classification, lost yesterday, and that's time lost, and you know, it's so difficult to get it back. So you know, you do not want to give anything to your other challengers for the win, for the place in the podium in this race, but unfortunately, where this difficult finish yesterday, very in the race, it did affect riders more than you would expect maybe as you go further into the race. And yeah, very disappointing for quite a lot of riders that, you know, lost a minute and a half up to 2 minutes.
They did, and I'm actually wondering whether some of it wasn't by design because the gaps were so huge. A little bit of a wheel change for Aston there, but yeah, Marc Soler lost 7 minutes and 40. Theo Gegenhardt came in with that group along with Jay Vine, who'd been quite busy early on. Depends what support work you'd offered up, I think, through the day, but that's a big fall off. Max Paul and Michael Woods lost 3 minutes and 43. Eddie Dunbar lost 3 minutes. Tiemann Arensman, a similar kind of margin. Louis Meintjes shipped 2.5 minutes. Guillaume Martin, Adam Yates and Richard Carapaz, a minute and a half. That was a surprise to me. Ben O'Connor shipped 1 minute and 11. Christian Rodriguez, 51 seconds. Shelmaz and Godot, 43. Sepkus himself, 28 seconds on the day's winner and leader. Well, Laura says at the start here, I came closer to see the protocol the teams have to protect their riders from the heat. And I'm wearing a jacket and I'm suffering because this jacket is really cold, but here we are. Miguel Landa and is a masseuse, I should say. Talk us through what you have to do today. How do you face today's stage? Well, we're using approximately 50 kilos of ice. There are some ice socks prepared in all of the cars and some extra ice in the ice bucket. In total, 50 to 60 kilograms of ice today. Let's remember that the ice socks are the ice that we put in the socks and we give to the riders. Yeah, this is they put this down their backs and refresh themselves. And compared to a regular day, how many water bottles do you prepare for the riders to use? Well, it's about 100 more water bottles today. We're prepared approximately 250 in total. So normally it's 150, but we have an extra 100 just in case it gets very, very warm out there, and it looks like it will be. Moreover, you've frozen bidons as well, am I right? That's correct. We have some frozen ones, so they are cooler for a longer time.
Ya estoy. Y ahora, mira, Phil, me cojo la bici. Y ya estoy lista para la etapa de hoy.
I just have to take the bike, and now I'm ready for today's stage. I must say that the water is starting to melt already, and I'm feeling quite refreshed, but I'm going to give it back, this jersey, to whoever it belongs to. 43 Celsius in Sevilla. A rough day. Well, hour a mess ago. Required. And now I'm ready for today's stage. I must say that the water is starting to melt already, and I'm feeling quite refreshed, but I'm going to give it back, this jersey, to whoever it belongs to. 43 Celsius in Sevilla. A rough day. Well, hour a mess ago. Requiring cooling down herself, even during the interview, as you saw. It is punishing, like a hammer coming down today. And so, indeed, were the time gap blows that were sustained yesterday. Sepp Kuss did a lot better than perhaps we'd feared. Got himself back to 11th place. The clock had adjusted ahead of him with gaps, and so he was 28 seconds down. Not as bad as would have been expected. And Mikkel Landa was an absolute hero yesterday. Well, he lost in the time trial. He found out on the mountain. He finished in the front group and was in attacking mode for much of it. Tempoed his way up the final climb, and that tempo was a good one. Finished 7th, but on the same time as Primoz Roglic, Van Eetvelt, Almeida, Mas, Gal, Ricky Tello. All of those went extremely well. Bonus seconds, of course, factored in. And a disappointment for Lenny Van Eetvelt that he went to celebrate. And as he raised his hand, Primoz Roglic just powered through and won by, what, half a wheel. Lesson learned for Lenny Van Eetvelt yesterday. He freely admitted it, Sean. He only went and celebrated, and it cost him.
Yes, well, that was an interesting one. We see him, putting up his hand. I was not sure whether he was, putting up the hand as a gesture. He had, lost it, but it seemed like he was going to celebrate, and then he realised Roglic was coming very quickly on his left, and he put his hand down and tried to go. But I'm not sure if he hadn't done that, would he still have got the win, because Roglic was coming very fast. And when we see the head-on shot, I was saying a half a wheel, but when you look at the side-on shot, it was a good wheel he won by from Eetvelt. So an interesting one, and yeah, it's a mistake that you make, in the earlier part of a career. And Eetvelt, of course, a young guy. The experience maybe just sprint all the way to the line, because you have to be careful, and especially with a rider like Primoz Roglic. We know his qualities in that sort of finish, and the way he was riding as well yesterday, he was really exceptional. And I have to take my hat off, because I didn't think he was capable of that, although Robbie McEwen, he had put all his dollars on him yesterday, and he called it very, very early in the day. I was, not agreeing with that. I was a little bit hesitant. Roglic coming back from injury, going out of the Tour of France, all of that. But my God, he was at a super level yesterday, and he just dominated the way he needed to do. on the climb, he just set that real strong pace, but always keeping that little bit in reserve as well for the final. And then we see when they got into that final kilometre, 1500 metres, he was just there looking, riding a little bit in the front, but always waiting. He knew in the sprint, the way he was feeling, he had a big chance of taking stage victory and of course taking the race leadership.
A remarkable athlete, Primož Roglič. Came in from another sport, as you well know, ski jumping. Often been not criticised, but there's been a recognition really that he is not of a complex formula when it comes to strategy. He uses brute force. Yesterday it worked absolutely wonderfully for him, and one can only imagine that if he stays in the same physical state, then we're looking at 4 vueltas to his name, Sean. He looked imperious yesterday, I think.
Yes, and let's hope that he stays out of danger, because
yes,
his history in the Vuelta, in the Tour, in all races, Paris, Nice, remember so many of them you could start naming them off for a couple of minutes. His bike handling, and he's been unlucky as well, but some of it comes down to the bike handling, coming into bike racing late in his career. And people say, how is that possible? Yet something you have from the beginning. If you're a good bike handler, you have it naturally. You have a certain amount of it, but riding as a young kid when you're 12, 13, 14, 15, underage, junior ranks, that's where you learn how to handle your bike, and that experience is vital as you go into the bigger scene, into the World Tour, professional bike racing. And because everybody is such a good level, so many good bike handlers, and the rate they're going, the risk they take, the downhill speed they go, all of that, bike handling is very important. And unfortunately for Primož, he had his difficulties. But if you look at if he had been in early as a bike rider, hadn't had the difficulties had in many races, how many Grand Tours would he have won? That is the question I often think to myself, and I often talk about it when I'm out with my buddies on the road. We talk about the riders, after the Tour of France, after Giro, that is a discussion. We go out on a Sunday ride, and it is an interesting one. But looking at what he has chalked up already, palmarès-wise, coming from ski jumping, it's an amazing career, and he's an amazing guy. And we see when we do the interviews with him, he's just so relaxed, and he seemed to enjoy it. Although in the interviews he gives a lot of talk, but he don't give anything away really. He just talks around everything quite well.
I had an old teacher, Mr. Hempstock from Hallam Juniors, and lovely guy. He was quite a philosopher as well, and he said you always end up doing what you're second best at. And I just thought, that's wonderful. Everyone was very confused, but I took what he meant. You always have to think about what you can achieve next, and indeed what you can polish up in the life that you've got. And that makes for, I think, your best life if you view things like that. So, Mr. Hempstock, we salute you. Yeah, I just wonder whether Primož Roglič was in what he was second best at when he was a ski jumper, and now finds himself in what he could have been masterful at from the very beginning, as Sean has pointed out. I think when you come through the junior ranks, Sean, you deal with an awful lot of rough stuff, as you quite rightly said, because it's a bit more of a bagatelle every single day, and you've got to be a good bike handler. That's almost the most primary thing, to stay upright in those divisions.
Yes, well, junior racing is a bit hectic, and but also, you're with guys at your age, and they're learning as well. You're going at a slower speed as well. All of that, it helps you just to learn how to ride in the group, how to go around corners, how to go downhill. And then as you go up the ranks under 23, you're going, to a higher level. And that means, you're going faster downhill. There's more competition in the peloton as well to keep your position, to fight to hold your position, going into climbs and going into important parts of the race. And yeah, the best way is to start young and learn it from the junior ranks and up through. And we see, so many riders that start out their career early. A lot of them, I think, their bike handling is very good because of that practice.
Well, some of you are heading off for a commercial break. I'm going to find out what Sean Kelly's first ever bike was. Sean, my first ever bike was a Hercules Jeep. It was a proper old iron rig. What was yours?
I think my first one was a Mercian. which was
not bad,
a British brand,
yeah.
sorry. And then they went on. Holdsworth was another one, which was a pretty big one in Ireland. A lot of the bike shops, the few bike shops were there, they all were selling them. So yeah, it was always, you know, a British manufactured bike that I used during my amateur.
Never a Carlton?
No.
It was actually my local bike shop. The factory was actually in Worksop, very close to Sheffield, and I had a Carlton Corsa in metallic violet.
And that was rally?
Yeah,
yes.
Ultimately.
Yes.
TI took them, yeah, exactly. Yes, it became a TI Carlton racing team. It was bought, it used to be independent and then was bought up by Rally. You're absolutely right. And almost squashed as a brand.
Was the home of bike building in the UK.
That's right, and not that far away from where David Duffield used to ply his trade. He was used to work with Rally. Came along once long in the past and said, "Look, there's these great tiny bikes. Tiny bikes are the way forward. It's called BMX. Kids in America are going crazy for it. We should make them." And they said, "No, nothing's going to happen there." But of course it did. He was absolutely right. And I've got to tell you that David Duffield was instrumental, would you believe, in the Americanization of cruiser bikes and brought us the Rally Chopper. So yeah, David Duffield, formerly of this parish, bless him, no longer with us of course, but fondly remembered by everyone who met him. Yes, he brought you the Rally Chopper, and indeed developed the BMX scene, which of course Robbie McEwen will be very grateful for. That's where Robbie indeed started his shenanigans. 4 minutes, as you can probably tell from the conversation. Today there's not a great deal happening. So look further forward in this race, however, Sean, this is the last day, they say, for the sprinters. I think Cordoba on stage 7 will probably have a little bit of an opportunity for the sprinters. There is a category 2 climb, but I think it unwinds with about 25 or even 30 kilometres to go. So no fears there, I wouldn't have thought, for the sprinters. Certainly not for Wout van Aert. So quick men will have their days, and there are more Wout van Aert days than there are Caden Groves days. So I think Caden Groves, if he wants to be in the green jersey again, he's got to get there today, Sean.
Well, he's definitely wanting to get there today, and Wout van Aert also, because it is, you know, certainly going to be a sprint at the end of the day. And when you look forward, you know, there's not many days you can pick out and say, well, that's going to be a sprint day. So they have to, you know, make hay while the sun is shining, as they say, and it's definitely shining today. So, you know, the two guys we have here, they will be disappointed if, you know, either of them, whichever of them wins the stage and loses, there will be disappointment.
Scorchio, as they say, 177 kilometres in total today. It doesn't sound like a whole rack full of kilometres, does it? And not much altitude gain, in fact. Still, however, I'm just looking, just shy of 1,700 metres. That's the nature of the road that we're dealing with. However, it does pan out. It becomes pan flat. There you are, 37 Celsius, so easing down just a little bit from, I think once you get into built-up areas, it generally tends to be a little more intense, because whatever breeze there is available to moderate the temperature, and there's not much, I have to tell you, generally tends to be locked down a little bit, so the air becomes less turbulent within towns, and as a result, it feels even hotter. In fact, it is. The Sierra de Tenturia. Well, I don't know what they're building up here, Sean, or renovating, but it's the Monastero de Tenturia. I've no idea what their plans are for the future, but to be honest, it just looks like a sanctuary that it's a long way for a bottle of milk if you've forgotten it.
Yes, it is. And we see here there's not a lot of work going on here. I think they're on... We have wet time over in Ireland, but I think it's hot time here when it's too hot to work. And in the summertime, we know that, of course, in Spain, when you get to the real scorching hot conditions, they maybe work early in the morning, or I think there's some weeks and some months during the year where they maybe not work at all.
Well, that would kind of make sense, quite frankly, looking at the sort of temperatures that we're having to deal with, particularly today. You'd think to yourself, you know what? I think we'll leave it until October. It's Don't leave the kettle boiling, for goodness sake. Yes, well, it's boiling today, isn't it? Goodness me.
Yes, it is. And talking about milk up there, I think if you want some milk, you need to have a few goats rambling around.
Yeah, and decant it late, Sean. Yeah, I'll have a splash of milk. Off you go then. You know where the stables are. 107.6 kilometres from home. We're bouncing around the 4-minute margin at the moment. Goodness me, they're searching for shades, Sean. As you do, you get over to that side of the road where the trees are just offering up some almost little flashlights of shade along the way. It's hard. It's a hard day. 107 Ks remaining. They're not actually taking it in the relaxed fashion that we did. I think word may have gone around since stage 3, Sean, where we even had the TV cameras waiting up the road because the peloton were only doing 32 kilometres an hour. Somebody's had a word. It's average 42 today.
Yes, well, I think the previous days there was probably a much stronger headwind, and I think the race organisation were expecting quite active start on that occasion, so the motorbikes and all the TV crew were a bit further up the road, so we did have to wait. I think it was maybe 20 minutes to get live pictures, but yeah, today it's going at a better pace here, and the two men out in front looks like that. Yeah, the wind condition is not as much as it was previous days, but this is going to be a long day for the two guys out here, because when you're taking the ride, the pull on the front, like we can see the guy from Kern Pharmacy here on the front here, when he's doing Ibon Ruiz, when he does his pull on the front and the other man from the Esquetel team takes it, you do not get a lot of time to recover. Where you have 6 guys here, then the time you get to just stay in the draft and get that effect, get that recovery time, it's a huge difference over the distance of 170 plus kilometres they're going to be maybe out here. But yeah, unfortunately only 2 men wanting to get up the road again today, and it's definitely a case where the organisers are talking with the teams who got the wild card, and they're just putting men out in the front to keep the race a bit more interesting in this early part.
The Tentudia Hill, by the way, that we just skirted around with the monastery atop it. Yeah, the highest point in the region at 1,112 metres above sea level. Thankfully, I guess for the riders, they didn't go up there. There's only one road up, so it's quite a thin one. They'd have had to come all the way back down, the leaders, then ride against those who are still coming up. But you never know in the future. But yes, there is no hiding place here, except, I've got to tell you, if the Monastero Tentudia was actually formed by Pope Leo X in the 16th century. I knew him well, pipe smoker. Yes, made that last bit up, by the way. Steer clear, kids. But there is indeed some cave systems around here, and I've got to tell you that troglodytes as well, and you can understand when you get the temperatures that we've got here, that's where you go and live, at least for part of the year, for goodness sake. Well, you don't bang your head on any of the stalactites up there. Bit of relay going on, nothing too much to worry about, but Lenny van Eetveld is here, a man who will eternally wonder whether he shouldn't have just kept his hands on the bar, Sean.
Yes, well, that is a one which will be debated for quite a while, and certainly within the team. And yeah, after this race, when he goes back home, his supporters back in Belgium, Eetveld will be thinking, if I had sprinted all the way to the line. And if you do, just go full on, give it your all the way to the line, then it could have been a stage victory for him, but we're never going to know that now. Yeah, it's a big disappointment, but I think we all made our mistakes in our career. I made it as well in the earlier days as well, where you think yeah, you're going fast enough. You don't see anybody left and right, and you can just have that quick look, that glance to the left and the right, and there's nobody there. So you decide, to give the victory salute, and then suddenly a guy comes by at such a rate and just gets you on the line. That wasn't the case yesterday. There was well over a wheel of a difference between the two men fighting out for the victory. But we can see here back in the peloton, Edfeld there looking like is he struggling a bit with the heat? That is something we talked about in the earlier part of the day. This could have an effect. Another day in these really scorching conditions, it could start to affect the riders. We also see the man there from UAE having a break back, Jay Vine in the cavalcade of cars. Maybe they stop for a nature break. That is possible because the way it's going along at the moment. But yeah, as this day go on, I think this effects could have major consequences on some of the riders.
This is of Arab origin. This Castillo de Cuernel. That was the 9th century. Of course, there was an Islamic empire which moved into southern Spain, and it was later remodeled by the Templars. Yes, the Order of St. James came through. They say remodeled. I don't know what they did. Probably just changed the furniture. Who knows? But nonetheless, it still stands proud as a monument to, indeed, both empires, I guess you might say. Hands going up all over the place. It's got a frantic day today just to stay reasonably cool, and it's a hard task. This is Kasper Askelin. Well, there are some riders that really sustain it. I suspect those from the cooler climbs, as Sean was saying, that are really going to find themselves in a bit of bother. But it can affect anybody. Even you're going to find some of the Colombians were off the back. I noticed as well that Chapeda looked like he was struggling earlier on for EF education. And gosh, there's not much chit-chat going on despite the pace, Sean. It's not the most punishing, but the heat is, and nobody's talking.
No, we can see here, I think everybody is suffering because of the very, very warm conditions here, and you can see they're just going up this climb here. They're going at a very steady pace. This guy running here is almost, keeping pace with the riders. And as you said, some riders, supported better than others. So we can see
the power of the bidon.
Yes, the bidon is attracting the spectators out onto the road. But yeah, sometimes on some occasions, you support it okay, but other days it hits you big time.
What happened today is the question. We saw you getting out of another bus. Yeah, the day before our own bus broke down, so luckily we found a solution thanks to Team Burgos. Yeah, it's quite a different day. Well, the good thing about cycling too is the solidarity between teams. Mika, we've seen you in very good shape yesterday. This was the first mountain test. How did you feel? Well, the result was good, even if I had to suffer a lot. At the start of the climb, I struggled a bit, but took my own pace and got back on the front. What was worse yesterday, the top of the stage, the legs or the heat? A bit of everything, he says. The start of the Vuelta, where I'm looking for some sensations and an explosive climb, it was a tough day. But are you satisfied? Yeah, very satisfied. My goal yesterday was not to lose time, and I managed it. Well, more than that, he gained time, Sean, on quite a lot of pre-race favourites. Certainly riders you'd think would be in the top 5, and some, well, they find themselves struggling to get in the top 20.
Yes, well, there was a lot of riders suffered much more and lost a lot of time, much more than they had expected, I think. And when you go down through the list, the guys who are thinking of a place in GC big time within their team, and when you look at those riders like Theo Gegenhardt, I think they would have hoped within Little Trek that he would be able to stay close up there. hoping to be, you know, within the minute at the finish yesterday, but 7 minutes 40 down, a huge loss there. Danny Martinez from Red Bull Bora as well, 4:10, another one which, you know, you'd be expecting to stay up there because, you know, he was a protected rider yesterday. We did see the team doing a huge amount of work controlling the breakaway and preparing for Primož Roglič, but, you know, he was also a protected one. Eddie Dunbar, another one who lost over 3 minutes. He was hoping to stay within that, and now we know he's really out of it because also lost time in the opening time trial as well. Aaron's man, you know, the Ineos Grenadiers man who had big hopes and, you know, have a good record in this race. He lost 2:35, so, you know, again, much more time than he would have hoped. Uterbrooks 1:38. Adam Yates, as you mentioned, Carlton, and Richard Carapaz 1:29. These are big losses. Carlos Rodriguez, another one for the Ineos Grenadiers team, losing 51 seconds. You know, he'd be hoping to be within that, at least with Roglič and the rest who are in that 7-man group going to the finish, or within, you know, 20-25 seconds of them. So a lot of riders losing, you know, in the first major stage, mountain stage in this one for the GC men. Big losses for a lot.
Well, if that was the first question, as far as the GC is concerned, it seemed that not many had the answer, but Primož Roglič most certainly did. And it was just a wonderful performance from him. And, you know, whenever you get a lot of success, generally a little bit of bitterness starts to follow behind, whether it be from other riders or indeed fans of other riders. And unkindly so. I don't think that bitterness applies to Roglič. Primož Roglič has really been through the mill, and his fallibility, I think, warms the hearts of many fans. Not least the way that the Tour de France slipped from his grasp, Sean. And I think of all the big-name riders, Primož Roglič garners more affection than just about anybody else.
Well, certainly after yesterday, because the team, the way they rode, you know, they controlled the race all day. They controlled the breakaway, and then in the end, you know, they just got him into a position for the final climb and left him do his business, and he went about it very well. And you know, as we see, when Gal attacked from Decathlon AG2R, he was the one who controlled him, just continue on making that real strong pace and putting a lot of the other favourites for this race into difficulty, and you know, just kept grinding away at it. And that's what Primož Roglič can do. When he's in real good shape, he can just set that real killer of a pace that some of the other great climbers have difficulty living with him, and exactly what he did yesterday. And then in the end, we see the way he managed the things, digested it so well in the final to the run to the line, and got his stage victory. Yeah, he deserved it more so because of the work they put in, because we were talking about that yesterday. Now, I mentioned a few times, you know, if you're a DS there of the team of Red Bull Bora, you know, you start looking to the other teams. You'd look at the, you know, the team Visma, for example. You'd look at UAE Emirates, and you'd say to those guys, you have guys who are going to be fighting to try and win this race or get on the podium. You have to contribute as well in this chase. But it didn't seem to happen. Well, we didn't see it on TV. Maybe it did back in the cavalcade of cars, and they come together and they start, you know, asking the question, and maybe they weren't getting it from those teams. And it would be nice to know if, you know, we could find that out. But they continued on. They just kept working at it, and they got the results which they set out for from the beginning of the day yesterday.
It's amazing, isn't it? The team that is in support of Primož Roglič are entirely dedicated to him. Danny Martinez, Alexander Vlasov, Florian Lipovic, all quality riders in their own right. And there's a big move, I think, to offer up the sort of support that Primož Roglič is absolutely... It's absolutely vital to anybody who's going to have GC ambitions. But the support of Red Bull, the funding that's come in with that, Bora Hansgrohe and the like, he's got the backing, Sean, and I don't know, provided he stays healthy, the sky's the limit for Primož Roglič.
Well, it'll be a very welcomed one within the team with Red Bull, you know, the sponsor coming on board just before the Tour of France, and you know, it's the Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe to give it its full title now. And you know, we did hear from Rolf Denk, you know, the expectations with this big sponsor, big budget, they're looking at riders as well. It'll be interesting to see, will we see, some new signings there. We've heard already, some of them. And the result yesterday, the position, Primus is in the race at the moment, is a great place to be. And, hopefully they'll be able to continue on in that role, and maybe, hopefully, it would be nice to see they can go all the way and win this Vuelta, but he has a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of big challenging days and a lot of challengers who lost maybe time yesterday, but they could come back, and the opportunities, the days to do that, there are a huge number of them here. So it's going to be a long fought battle here over the next 2.5 weeks almost.
Very much so. Well, he knows how to win it. He's done it 3 times before, and I think of all the Grand Tours, this is the one that he clearly favours. And it's not simply because of where it comes in the back end of the year, and it's a tidy up Grand Tour. He targets this, and Primož Roglič, I think, since he took flight from Visma Leasebike, we were talking long and hard about this yesterday, of course, with Nathan van Hooijdonk, who'll be coming in to join us a little bit later on. Yeah, I mean, he's found a home in Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, and he holds no bitterness. You saw that at the beginning of the big stage yesterday. He's going to Visma Leasebike, just offering up the best wishes to everybody, including Sepp Kuss. No hard feelings apart from Primož Roglič. He knows what professional sport is all about. He's had a long career, not only in cycling, but elsewhere, of course, is well documented. And he's such a pro, but such a nice guy as well. And I think that carries a lot of weight. This man's carrying a lot of weight as well, Sean. I mean, half a litre is half a kilo. That's quite a bit of extra watts required to deliver all these tidily.
Yes, well, he is full loaded there, and the team mechanic is still packing them into the that gilet which carries those bottles, and it's something we don't see that a lot, because the riders do not have to take a lot of bottles, but of course with the conditions here it's vital that you take as many when you come back to the car, and then make way up to the through the peloton and distribute them to your teammates, and also for the rider doing that, it's a nice cooling effect while you have them very, very cool bottles, or maybe even frozen bottles on your back.
There we are. 98.3. We've gone under the 100 to go, Sean. The gap still solid at 3:38. The peloton just don't want to catch these guys, quite clearly. It's not that they're driving it unnecessarily, but the pace is steady.
Yes, well, they're doing quite a strong pace, considering we have only 2 men in the breakaway right from the beginning today, and the peloton has to keep on moving at the pace that they need to keep the breakaway at tabs, and that's what they're doing here. Around the 4 minutes it did come down, so 3 minutes 40 at the moment, 97 plus kilometers to go. That is not a problem at all for anybody, and they're happy with that. They will allow that to be for quite a long time, and this is one of the days where we talk about it's going to be another transition day in the Vuelta, and you get them in the big tours when you're going through this sort of terrain, and the conditions we're getting as well. And in the team briefing this morning, the teams would have been talking, okay, the sprint teams are going to control this one because of very few sprint opportunities. So the number of riders going to the breakaway, there were very, very few takers, and that gives us the results, what is happening on the road at the moment, and what is going to go on for quite a long time.
Well, I don't know if the temperature's altered or what, but certainly the relaxation is on display. I think they've done the toughest part of the day. This is the Cala Castle, Castillo de Gala. It was built on a hill overlooking the Ribera de Gala, the Gala River. It's the border of the Kingdom of Seville and the Encomienda of the Order of St. James. So yeah, the Crusaders were around here as well in the past. From this peak, you can see all the other castles that we've actually been at. I don't know whether they gave each other little waves. Obviously when it was not quite as hot, but you can walk around here and go and wave to Uncle George if he happens to be on one of the other, like the Monastero de Tetudia and the like. Built on the site of prehistoric remains. The Romans were here as well. There you go. So Julius Caesar, on his holidays from conquering Britain, decided to come and experience some of the heat. That is not documented. Meanwhile, almost a welcome stop, I think it's fair to say. It won't be too difficult for Rijsbeek to catch up. Rear puncture, no real hurry, and that's the way of it today. However, we got an intermediate sprint coming up. All right, it's a long way. It's that will be with 24 kilometres to go. It's not exactly coming up just yet, but nonetheless, we'll be coming off this higher plain where they've built the castles and going down onto the wide open savannah that will lead us to Sevilla itself, where it's going to get even hotter. I know. Well, if it looks hot, it probably is hot. We are still on this sort of escarpment, really. Would that be fair to describe it as? We won't actually be dipping off it for quite some time when we get into El Ronquillo. But this is where you get these wide open spaces. There's not much fit to entertain you in these parts, which is, and if you do get lost, you can get yourself into danger, which possibly explains the fact that we'll be seeing some vultures later on today. They do cruise around. I don't know what they're looking for. Probably the odd mouse. Maybe the odd bidon, I don't know. That may well be discarded by these guys. Rijsbeek just making his way back in. Cars speeding past. He's got a tempo himself, Sean, because he's on his own with his nose in the air here, and he's not getting much help from the cars. He's not overly looking for it either, though, I must say.
No, well, I don't think the pace is going that fast that he's going to be concerned. And as we see, you know, the cars just going by that little bit too fast for him to get in the slipstream of the cars. But as they more come by, he will manage to get that and you know, use the cars to get back in here. But you could see there when Rijsbeek was getting the wheel change, the other riders going by, you know, they were going at quite a fast rate, and it's just hard. When you look at it here, it looks like they're going really slow, but if you're actually on the bike there, you know, those guys are going at quite a nice pace. And talking about the road, Carlton, you know, this is a real killer of a road. You know, a lot of, you know, pan flat straight sections. You know, it just goes on and on like this, and it's so boring. And it's not surprising that we see a lot of the riders trying to have a bit of banter there in the peloton, just to get through the day. And you know, still just under 95 kilometres to go. We have still a long way to get to this part of the race where things will start to, you know, hotten up, and the race will start to, you know, go at a faster pace. And then when you get into that, you know, everybody just getting focused, getting ready for the finish, getting for the run in, it will probably be into the final 30 kilometres.
Suggestion of some breeze on some of the higher trees here, but when we mentioned the Romans, you can tell they've been here. A straight line, absolutely. It's like, oh look, a turn. Enjoy it while you can. They've just come to the end of a very long section where I think the peloton had sight of them, even with 3 minutes and 33. Pace of the day has dropped down significantly. Average 36.7. They're being cruel to us, Sean. The slowest predicted was 43. What's gone on?
Well, unfortunately, the breakaways, you know, just two riders is always difficult, and you have to just, you know, ride, you know, at a rhythm, because if you go, you know, 3 kilometres an hour per hour faster, the peloton is just going to do the same. So the two guys out in front, they know that, so they're just, you know, playing the game.
The straightness of this road, we just saw the peloton reach the end of it. It must be several kilometres in length, and because the pace is 36 kilometres per hour as an average, they actually caught sight of the break, even though the gap is 3 minutes and 31 seconds, as you can see. There's a little bit of not exactly mirth, but there's a light mood, I think it's fair to say. It's probably the last of, I think, any day that could be described as having an easy section to it. From now on in, Sean, after this, it gets very brutal, this race. Well,
there's a lot of brutal days to come, and you know, we talked about this at the opening time trial stage, how difficult a vuelta it is. You know, the amount of meter gain it is just frightening. And when you look at the road book, there's just day after day where there's difficult mountain stages, and that's what the riders are thinking about as well. And that's the reason we're not getting riders going in the breakaway, because they know there's a lot of very difficult days to come, and also opportunities, and better opportunities than we have today. They know that the teams are going to control that have some of the fast men here. So the take is to get into the breakaway, unfortunately, but only the 2 invited teams here, and that's the reason this average is way down on the slowest average in the road book for the day.
Well, here's Mikkel Landa. Did a fabulous job yesterday, making amends for what was a lacklustre time trial by even his own standards, I'm afraid. But yesterday he really started to vault up the pecking order, I think, of those who might make an impact on this race. A few moments ago we just saw the Minas de Cala. Originally it was a copper mine where the Romans went, oh, copper. And they extracted everything and they thought, right, that's the end of that then. And then they found iron ore, so it became an iron mine. There we are. There's even some of the old tunnels that the Romans left behind are now a gallery. Not pictures, you understand, but a whole sequence of mine tunnels that you can actually go and explore if indeed that's your kind of thing. Personally, I can't think of anything more frightening than potholing, as we call it in Derbyshire. Anyways, back to this. 3.5 minutes, chit-chat. Lots of it, no stress. I think, Sean, a ride-through day is almost what everyone needs when it's 40 Celsius.
Yes, well, what can you do here? The situation,
the fandango,
the route, weather conditions, that is what is going to give. And I think this day, unless there was, a wind blowing where it made the peloton very, very nervous, it was always going to be a case where this stage would be a slow one. And the breakaway was never going to be a big one, because the teams that want to control here were always going to keep tabs on how many riders were left away as well. And often we see that at the start, the teams that want to control, the GC teams as well, they put a number of riders on the front and they only allow a minimum amount of riders into the breakaway, and that's what they have done today. Although I don't think there was many takers today to go for the breakaway, so it was a relatively easy job for the teams that wanted to control who and how many were going up the road.
Well, it's time for us to welcome Nathan van Hooijdonk into the commentary position. He must have seen today and thought, I think I'll leave this as late as possible.
Did I miss much?
No. Well, Sean Kelly's famed paella recipe has actually had an airing. That's something to miss. Apart from that, it's all really been about heat management, and the average pace today, nudging 36 kilometres per hour. It seems that a bit of levity has washed over the peloton. They got through the hottest part of the day as we approach 4 o'clock now. And they're having a bit of a party, Sean.
Well, I'll tell you, Nathan, that the people went for my recipe for the pellet. There's a few sick already.
I'm not surprised. Oh, dear. It's his secret ingredient that you've got to watch out for. Here's our leader of the race. Looked so cool yesterday, didn't he? Still admits he's in pain, however, and doesn't want to count on anything.
No, but I mean, I believe when he says he's in pain, I believe that he's still in pain. But yesterday he has shown that the pain is doable, and he can perform with a little bit of pain. And Primoz is also somebody who has a very high threshold for pain, I think, because he's had some bad luck in his career and a few bad crashes, but.
I think anyone who time trials as well can naturally park pain, can't they?
That's true, yeah.
And he's certainly one of those.
But a different pain.
Yeah, you need to embrace the pain a little bit as a cyclist sometimes, huh?
Yes, well, from an injury, you have that pain, but when you're on the bike, of course, you're climbing, you're in a time trial, there's always that pain, but it's a different sort of pain, and when you have a real bad injury and the pain starts getting worse, well then, even when you slow down a little bit, you still have that, niggling pain, and then you have it after the stage as well. When you're on the massage table, it can be so painful when it's being worked on, so that is a difficult one. But a little question here for Nathan: looking at Primus's palmarès here, and I was surprised, I'm not sure if it's correct, Tour de France, how many stages has he won?
Primus? 6?
3.
3 only?
Amazing, isn't it?
We'll have to recheck that, because this is from Vuelta, official information, but it says 3, which I was very surprised as well that it's that small, that low.
João, very good performance yesterday, that first test in the mountains. How was it for you personally?
It was good. It was a very hot day. I was happy with the 3rd place and the climb I did, so it gave me a little bit of confidence for the next weeks.
And what about the team? Because we know that you have 2 leaders, you and Adam, but yesterday was not the best day for Adam. Are you still both the co-leaders? The plan is still the same?
Yeah, of course. The Vuelta is very long, until Madrid has a lot of climbs, so yeah, 1 minute is nothing until there. He wasn't feeling great yesterday with the heat, so yeah, for sure he's gonna feel better in the next days.
How was that climbing, that last climb? Because it was a kind of João Almeida moment where it looks like you are suffering, but you start climbing, and at the end we are with the best.
Yeah, I could manage my effort quite good, so yeah, that's a good point from yesterday. But overall I was always pretty close, so I was pretty chill, and yeah, and in the end I could come back to the group and sprint for the 3rd place, so I was very happy with the outcome.
Is the risk of having a bad day like Adam had yesterday, is that bigger since both you and him have been firing on all cylinders since Swiss?
I mean, it's only 1 minute, it's not such a big deal. Until Madrid, a lot can happen, and you can lose 2-3 minutes very fast, so yeah, it's just, if it's a bad day, he's losing 1 minute, I think it's a pretty good bad day, so.
Losing a minute any day, I think, is pretty much a bad day. Adam Yates yesterday lost 1 minute and 29 to Roglic. Marc Soler, maybe on other duties, but found himself 7 minutes and 40 off the pace. There were some big holes in the GC players yesterday, weren't there?
Yeah, looking at the time gaps, Marc Soler, he was leading his teammates out towards the bottom of the last climb, towards the steep part.
Jay Vine was busy as well.
Jay Vine as well, yeah. But I was quite surprised to see immediately an attack of Pavel Sivakov. I mean, I don't think he is here as a GC rider, because it's quite clear that it's João Almeida and Adam Yates. But yeah, to launch that early on the climb, maybe he wanted to make sure he was the first one of the team, and try to get up the road, so that way his teammates just had to sit behind and wait. But it was Alexander Vlasov immediately countered, and actually it was also cool to see from Roglic that as soon as Vlasov was finished, he finished his effort, that he stayed very composed and just rode his own pace to the top of the climb.
He did a great job. Just to confirm, Sean Kelly was absolutely right. It is only 3 stage wins in 2017, 18 and 20. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those factors that people do win Grand Tours, of course, without winning any stages at all. And it's almost a relief when you are in the leader's jersey to actually get that stage win. I think Primož Roglic will be more than satisfied, not only to have taken the red jersey yesterday, but to do it with a stage win.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Primož is here not to win stages, but to win the overall. And
but it almost validates it, doesn't it, if you get a stage win overall?
Yeah, I think it's it would be quite strange to win an overall GC without winning a stage.
It's happened. I'll have a look and remind myself who and when. But it has happened in the past, Sean.
Yes, it certainly has, and I think I was the one in the Paris-Nice. I think I won a Paris-Nice without winning a stage, maybe even more than one. So a lot of the times, you're there, and of course, in the sprints, when you get to a finish, there's some guys that maybe are that bit faster than you, and when you're riding for GC as well, you have to be there every day. So the guys that can take a little bit easy on one day and then pick their stages and really have a go for they probably have a bit more energy on those occasions. But of recent, I think it's not as much as it was during my time in the mid 80s, end of 80s. But now you see the guys that are really winning the big tours. They have that quality. They can win in the mountains. They can win in the time trial. So yeah, they have a lot more opportunities. So yeah, it's a thing. I think most winners of big tours, they pretty much, I think we look back through the records the last number of years, they all win some stages in the race.
Just looking at Juristi coming through here, taking some real pleasure from the crowd who, as the heat of the day ebbs, are saying hello. Three minutes and 6, just coming through a settlement here, and you can see some of the olive groves, some fruit as well. A bit too scorched for the vine in these parts, but there is some chalky slopes here, and they can survive it. You see a little bit of livestock, so some mixed farming, but really it's almost desert-like today, and the wide open plain beckons. I mean, the flattest part, I think, of this year's race is due to come, Nathan. We've got some other flat days, but each one of them seems to have a little bit more of a profile. But this is just going to be almost ironed. You could play billiards in the run for home.
The last 30k is actually really really flat. But if you look at the map, it's actually all like very relaxed and straightforward roads. But if you going into these the last 30 kilometers, Sevilla is a very big city as well. So first you start passing through the outskirts of Sevilla, and there's gonna be a little bit of road furniture, a few roundabouts left and right, and a little more corners. So I expect it to be the last 30k a little bit more nervous, and also we will have intermediate sprint. Not sure how far that is from the finish line, but I think we will have
25 k's out.
Only 25k from the finish line. I think we will have again a big opener by Caden Groffs and Wout van Aert. Caden has said it in an interview a few days ago that he likes to do a big sprint on very easy stages, and today is if not easier than day 2. So yeah, we're gonna be seeing an extraordinary final.
Let's see how we go, shall we? It will actually feel pretty intense, the heat as well, because cities, as we mentioned earlier, generally tend to hold on to those temperatures because there's not so much breeze, Sean.
Yes, and that'll be an interesting one, because that intermediate sprint at just 24.6 kilometers to go. Then we get into Seville, 17 kilometers to go. So we're in the city for a long time, and when you're in the city, it's going to get technical. So from the intermediate sprint point, I think it will definitely be a race on, because the teams of GC, they want to get their positions from that point on, and it will go all the way to the finish from there.
Well, we'll see how technical it gets. There is a double right-hander which comes with about 3.7 kilometers to go, and it's actually got start warnings on the road book as part of the approach, because is it 3 kilometers or 4 today, Sean?
4.
4 makes sense, because that's just ahead of that double right-hander. So yeah, a little bit of technicality to say the least, but then it is almost a straight road from then. Yet more castles for us to ponder with. Just says that this area has been a zone of combat for many, many centuries, maybe millennia. Just pondering as well our approaches to the end today. A couple of roundabouts to deal with, and my thanks, I've got to say, yet again, to Julian, who writes to me every year when I start blaming town planners for roundabouts. It's not town planners. It's highway engineers that decide where these roundabouts come. And I must admit, when I was whinging about the popularity of roundabouts in ring roads, which you generally tend to play with, yesterday, as soon as I said the words, I remembered Julian's notes from years past. He was a former town planner himself, basically saying, "Stop blaming me. It's the highway engineers." So Julian, duly corrected, and my apologies once again. Highway engineers love a roundabout. I'm not quite sure cyclists do.
No, not really. I mean, but you can also use a roundabout to your advantage if you're in the front and you have a few roundabouts coming behind each other. you can really stretch out the peloton, and you can really make him suffer in the back of the bunch. So sometimes you like him, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you bunny hop him. We saw that yesterday, Sean.
Yes, we did, and of course Nathan is your younger generation roundabouts. As you remember, Carlton, you talked about a lot of them in France when we started covering the Tour of France, and how much every year there was more and more.
They didn't have them, did they? Not many of them anyway, and then suddenly they're everywhere.
No, and during my career when I started out, of course, they weren't there at all. Then slowly they started to come in, and they were a big pain in the what you mean. We did not like them at all, because you're used to going on a straight road and you had, you know, the way through, and yeah. But something, yes, you know, they're very familiar now, and there's so many of them in all those races which we see, like in the Tour, Vuelta, all of them. You know, there's just crazy in the final. There's so many we got about, and yeah, some are good because yeah, you get around them okay, but some can come treacherous, and yeah, when it's dry it's good, but in the wet conditions you're always holding your breath as you come into them.
Well, it's almost like they've overbred roundabouts in this part of the world. Spain, of course, has had an awful lot of European money. Funding has come through for their road infrastructure. And if you only go back, which is probably 30 years now, to be honest. When was Barcelona Olympics? That was 92. There was a whole raft of new ring roads and everything that went in. And indeed, in that part of Spain and everywhere, all the other regions kind of got a bit jealous and said, what about us? So the love was spread. And you can see the roads here, they're incredibly well metalled, they're generally smooth, not too heavy either. And we talk about heavy roads, Nathan, and those nasty gravelly roads that we're kind of used to in northern Europe, to be honest, because the weather's so bad. You want the grip for the vehicles. Down here in Spain, generally speaking, the rolling surface is great, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And there's also a big difference from where they are now compared to the asphalt of the first stage in Portugal, because there it tends to rain a little bit more in Lisbon. But I remember we used to go to training camp in Denia with the team always. There the roads were amazing, amazing quality. It's the Costa Blanca, so it's a lot of cyclist tourism there. So they also the government invests a lot of money in maintaining these roads very well. So. There was almost no rolling resistance compared to the sometimes bumpy roads in northern Europe.
Yeah, some of the high ground as well can actually be really nasty. In fact, yesterday the worst roads that we've experienced so far were the concrete flags. It wasn't as bad a road surface as I'd kind of feared, Sean, but it was still gnarly compared to what we've dealt with so far.
Well, I think it was very difficult on that section yesterday. We did see the way, you know, it was left very rough for the grip of the cars, and also it was concrete because, yeah, with the water flow so rapid, if you have an asphalt road, it just gets washed away all the time. So it was a difficult one. If it was, you know, a really smooth asphalt road, it would have been that much easier. But as Nathan will know, Belgium, concrete roads, it's the norm there, and you do not have that death trap, as we call it, down the middle, where they put that tar, but it eventually just gets burdened out, and then there's that 2-inch gap, and when you're in the peloton, my God, that is a scary place to be when you're in the middle of the road and you get pushed over and you have to bunny hop the two wheels at the one time because you haven't got enough space, you know, to get the angles to go across it. So the only way is bunny hoppers, and I think a lot of the riders are not familiar with it. They get it wrong quite often.
They do. Well, we're going to be joined shortly by Matt Stevens. In the meantime, let's hear from Luis Angel Mate. Sean's going to take himself a break. I'll be doing pretty much the same in a few moments' time. But Luis Angel Mate having a chat about the temperatures and indeed how life has been eating into the peloton today.
Luis, están siendo días de muchísimo calor. Tú, como corredor andaluz, marbellí.
Luis, these days it's been very, very warm. Tell us, as a rider from Andalusia, we can imagine that you're used to the temperatures here compared to some of the other riders, and that must have been quite a sufferance for you. I'd just like to ask you something about it. How are you coping? Well, we're all talking about it now. We talk about it often. Unfortunately, we talk about it even more every time that it's getting warmer, and it's got incredibly hot here. The truth is, I actually suffer with the heat. I'm not used to it as much as you might think, and nobody can stand it that well. We try to manage it as best as we possibly can, but we try and hydrate. We go for the ice. We have other things as well, changing our schedules, maybe changing dates, and just celebrating the Vuelta is one thing, but it's something to approach it, because unfortunately every year the temperature is absolutely punishing, and that's precisely what we're having, and I find it tough. Well, of course, we see these extremes. For example, in the Giro, they can't climb over 2,500 meters because of snow, and it's dangerous. Starting in Andalusia, the warmest part of Spain. Do you think that measures, really, protocols, need to change? Are they thinking about it? How are they governing it? Well, I understand that TV coverage has a lot to do with the measures and the schedules, but to start at noon or 1 p.m. with this kind of heat wave, it's pretty risky, because we have suffered on the days like yesterday, and another debate will be to change the dates with some Grand Tours and the Vuelta, of course, where it's scheduled, but in the end, it's the same issue. It's the same issue in the Tour de France, but unfortunately, we just need to have those debates probably sooner rather than later when it comes to temperature. Well, today we're expecting 43 degrees Celsius in Sevilla. What do you say about that? He said, well, at least we have the river to jump into at the end. Maybe. Let's hope that you arrive quickly and it's not too uncomfortable, says Luis Angel Mate. Well, it's time to welcome into the coverage edition Mr. Matt Stevens. We're busy saluting. Sean's just doing so as he exits out of the room. We will also be welcoming back Roy McEwen shortly. Matt, Scorchio.
Yeah, Scorchio. I was just looking back at a few of the interviews from yesterday's stage where, well, it wasn't as warm as this, but still ridiculously hot. And Richard Carapaz, he came up with a great phrase. He said he was in a zone of desperation on the climb in terms of his heat management. He was feeling okay until they started to slow down. No cooling air, not that the temperatures cooling much at all, but literally could not cope properly and had to really back off his effort. But yeah, that's a phrase that's going to stick with me now. But I think there's quite a few riders, even at this speed, Carlton, that are in various zones of desperation on their own, because we're, 15 or 20 minutes behind the slow schedule with that nagging headwind. So a brutal day out there.
Well, we were so slow the other day, 3 days ago now, that the TV cameras and all the security crew were too far up the road. We had 20 minutes of vistas, with nothing much happening, while everyone waited for the riders to arrive. Thankfully, you haven't got that case. We also welcome Robbie McEwen. G'day, mate.
Hello, gentlemen. Hola.
Well, if he's there or thereabouts, I shall leave you to find him.
Indeed.
I'm heading off.
Well, at least
right
you've introduced him for me, Carlton, because I left him. I forgot about him yesterday, didn't I? But hello there, Robbie. Good to see you. Good to see your lovely face, mate. Got Nathan still alongside us as well. How are you, mate?
I'm very well. I just am pitying the riders in these baking hot conditions.
Crazy, isn't it?
You can really forgive them that they're 20 minutes behind schedule. And the two riders out the front, they're giving it under the circumstances. But when it gets this hot, everybody is suffering. It doesn't matter if you're accustomed to it. You've ridden these conditions more than others. The body is only capable of certain things, and it is just extremely tough.
I mean, Nathan, you've ridden the Vuelta a couple of times. You've ridden in conditions like this. Just describe, because I have ridden in hot conditions, but it was a very long time ago, and I think I put it right into the deeper reaches of my mind. But you're obviously recently out of the peloton. What else, apart from cooling themselves down as much as possible, what does it feel like, and what else can you do?
Yeah, we always had on extremely hot days like today, we had a special cooling strategy. We would always have of course, cold water, and then to shower a little bit and to just pour it over our heads, which is quite standard, I would say. Then we would put ice in our necks as much as possible, and we would just go. I would just go to the car and get 2 musettes full of ice and just give them to my teammates. But then on the other hand, we also had ice gels. So basically gels with a little bit more water in them. That way they froze up, and we could eat them as I think you call it a popsicle, like a
popsicle,
small,
yep.
like a small ice cream, I would say. And that I always felt very good. Sometimes I would just eat a little bit of ice chips, just to anything to make your body cool down a little bit more.
Yeah, there we go. Average speed today, 36.6 k's an hour. So our 2 riders out in front. Ruiz and Foresti still enjoying that lead. I don't know if they're enjoying the lead after 316. Robbie, chip in, mate.
Well, just talking about the heat and the protocols that Nathan was talking about. Here's an old school one for you, and I've actually done this one.
I was going to ask you, because we're all sort of representing different sort of eras of the peloton. So yeah, hit us with yours.
Well, here's one that I did. It was back in the early 90s. It was here in Australia. It was just so ridiculous. You know, it was actually a track race at an outdoor velodrome event, but it was so crazy hot. And we had lettuce leaves soaked in cold water, and then you put that on your head. Because lettuce is 90% water. And
yeah.
It definitely gave a cooling effect. You had it on your head, and as the water would evaporate, it gave a cooling effect. It was super old school and something really left field. Could have been some placebo effect to it too, but it worked.
I've actually heard of that one as well, and I've actually used it, but with a cabbage leaf. So really thick.
Cabbage. Yeah, so I've done that one too.
Yeah, thick cabbage.
When we couldn't get lettuce.
Exactly. So some sort of big leafed vegetable is what.
Yeah.
And I think they used it in the 60s and the 70s underneath the helmet or underneath the cap. Used to put it on, and it is quite remarkably cool. I don't know about the scientifically proven benefits, but maybe a placebo.
I think the evaporative cooling. It really is a thing. You know what? I'm just glad, Matt, that you said I've come across it and I've done it too. Yes. Because usually when I come up with these sorts of comments with other colleagues, I've just become a laughing stock. They go, that's not true. You're making this up. Come on, you.
I mean, Nathan, any chance of, and you're still obviously doing stuff with Visma-Lease, but any chance of you adopting mine and Robbie's techniques from the 90s and the 80s and bringing it to Visma-Lease bike for a few more marginal gains with lettuce and cabbage?
I was going to say, I cannot take you guys serious anymore after this.
Well, I mean, on the other hand, Nathan, they are wearing those time trial helmets at Visma-Lease bike, so a cabbage leaf on the head is probably going to be the least of their worries.
Oh gosh, I tell you what, please folks at home, please excuse us as we go a little bit tangential today, because I mean it's the heat affecting us over in Australia, in London and in Spain, but these days we're laughing a bit and we're having a bit of a giggle, but these days from time to time are part of riding a Grand Tour night, and you have to get used to it. You know, it's not all action, especially with a profile with not a lot on it, and with the headwind as well. These are days that as a pro you have to learn to deal with as well. Yeah,
of course. I mean, this is quite an easy stage, and also for the riders in the peloton, it's a boring stage.
Yeah.
Everybody is bored. You talk to each other a little bit, but in the end, you also have so much to say. I mean, but that's also a little bit how cycling is evolving. Sometimes, like a sprint stage, most of the time it's quite clear it's gonna be a sprint, and then I'm sure we're in for a super hectic and an amazing final. But the mountain stages, as soon as there's a breakaway opportunity, like in my opinion tomorrow can be a stage for the breakaway, then you see it's the opposite. They might ride twice as fast in the first hour than they did today for by figure of speech, just because once there's an opportunity, they all realize they have to take it, because it's also like really specialized. Only the sprinters have a chance in on winning today, because it's a proper sprint chase. Tomorrow, there a whole a bigger variety of riders. They have a chance on winning the stage. Like in my opinion, Wout has a chance to win the stage. But also a rider like Bruno Armirail, who we saw in the break yesterday. They're two very different type of riders. So once they get a chance, everybody wants to take it.
Yeah, it's really. I like at the beginning of what you just said there, Nathan. You talked about the sport evolving, and Robbie, when you look at over the last couple of years, that is happening. Some of the sprint stages where we might have seen breaks go that almost no hope, suicidal type breaks, now they aren't happening quite as often because there is literally no point. Riders might as well save energy for another stage. The chances of staying away are pretty much zero. So we are seeing the sport evolving in a different way. We're not getting these fruitless breakaways quite as often. There's a far more strategy employed by even the smaller teams now.
Yeah, the people are really picking their battles carefully, and you don't just go out and waste energy. Grand Tours are hard enough as it is, without going on a fruitless expedition off the front. And okay, we understand in this situation the two smallest teams in the race are wildcard entries. They have a responsibility to the race as far as the organisers are concerned. They're here to keep the race moving, as it were, get out the front, set a pace. And that is a real thing. People might think, well, why can't they just say, well, you know what, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to sit back. But that is part of the agreement, in all honesty, when these teams get their entry into a race like the Vuelta. It's with the agreement that they will animate the race at every opportunity because there are schedules to keep. And you know what, as racing has evolved, we see less riders willing to go on these type of breakaways, on these type of stages. I would really like to see these flat stages heavily reduced in kilometres to make it a sort of all-out assault on a short stage. Like, why not make it 75k?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When you look at the Vuelta, you look at the map of the route. There's already it is the Grand Tour with the most transfers as well. There's a flight halfway through. There's some really long transfers between the stages. So quite often, Robbie, I take your point. I think it's a really valid one. Yeah. But you also have to sew the race together. So you either ride it or you drive it. But it's a really difficult balance for the organisers.
Yeah, and the other thing to consider is that you need to find cities and towns that will, as they pay the privilege, the race, and those out based on the economics, the distance.
We just apologies there for Robbie. We're just losing him a little bit, breaking up ever so slightly, Robbie. We might need to actually reboot Robbie McEwen. He's very good at being rebooted, actually. He's just doing that right now as we get another long shot at the back of the bunch. Not much power needed, especially with the headwinds drifting through. So some really low power numbers, but still a tough day on the body in these awful temperatures. While we get Robbie back, Nathan, you talk about these stages being boring for the riders, and there's only so many things you can actually talk about. How did you have a particular strategy? Was there anybody else that you decided to speak to? What did you do to get through days similar to this?
On days like today, you also need to, you cannot lose too much of your concentration, because that's also when sometimes crashes can happen. I mean, it was my job to stay in charge of keeping Jonas or Primoz or Wout safe. Then I also always try to stay as close as possible near the front. Because also on stages like today, it might be that there is I think we were just talking about it in Paris-Nice in 2021, I think. There was an attack by all the Belgians in the peloton.
I remember it well, yeah.
And they did a big surprise attack, and when I see them riding like this today, there might, I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. But then it's also your responsibility to stay in front, you know. Like I always try to stay a little bit around my teammates, just making sure they were okay. And if like we just saw before, Wout was a little bit further towards the back. Yeah, whenever he says it's fine, then I would just leave him alone and try to find somebody like a fellow countryman or somebody I know a little bit, like Enric Mas we see on screen. I had a good relationship with him. I would just go and talk to him a little bit, and also that way you can also get some information on how his preparation has been, or how his teammates are doing, and that's also a way to find some intel into the peloton.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating, that kind of fabric that holds the peloton together, but also as well, and I bring you in on this one as well, Robbie, because I've seen it in the past myself, is that once you do when you do take your eye off the ball and you lack a bit of concentration, especially if there's any gentle changes of direction, all it takes is a keen rider to have a look at an entire team sat at the back that normally would be favoured for the stage. You stick it in the gutter and there's a big problem, and we do get that. So you cannot, although today with that there's hardly any change of direction until we go into the last few Ks, we go back up parallel to the river in the centre of Sevilla, but we've seen that happen before. All it takes is a lack of concentration, and it's exploited. So it can be pretty dangerous as well.
It can be, when teams are prepared to just do that bit more than everybody else and take advantage of opportunities. Today's fairly safe, as you said, open roads, long periods in the same direction, and eventually everybody will switch on a lot more as we approach the outskirts of Sevilla. But yeah, you can rarely afford to let your guard down and have an easy period.
Welcome back then to our broader Eurosport family. Those of you who've been on a commercial break. A long stage today. Not so much in distance. 177 Ks on the menu. It's just the amount of time it is taking to head south to Sevilla with that nagging headwind. These soaring temperatures well in excess of 40 degrees. Not too far away from the UCI potentially taking a look. And Nathan, have you ever been in a situation when me and Robbie were back riding? We didn't have a bad weather protocol. It was just if it was super extreme, action would be taken, but we'd be riding in extreme heat, snow. But now there is that protocol. And do you want to explain what that protocol is? And it is relatively new in terms of cycling, and when it will be used.
Yeah, it will be used when it's really warm, and actually I've never seen it being put into place. Today it is very warm, but it's also like quite a flat stage, so not too much climbing, and then you get cooled down by the wind a little bit more. But I can remember the first race after COVID was Strade Bianche for us in 2020, and it was also, I think, 42, 43 degrees in Siena. It was really warm, and there I don't cope very well with the heat, but there I really went over my limit once, and I just couldn't recover from it. And it was my teammate Greg van Avermaet who fighted his way to a top 10 position. I think it was Wout who won the race. Back then I was still riding for Team CCC. But he was sick. He was throwing up at night just because he overcooked himself. And then I was thinking, like, maybe there we just could have, as riders, done maybe something. But when the race is ridden, it's always too late. And a bad weather protocol in like when the weather is very bad. Also, I did Gent-Wevelgem a few times when it was like really windy and raining. But yeah, then these were just the racing circumstances. And also me as a rider, I never thought about we shouldn't race today. In the Tour de France stages towards Carcassonne, when Philips won the stage in 22. Yeah, I felt my tires stuck in. They were attached to the asphalt. Like it was so warm, and then I was like, this cannot be good. But there was also nobody who said anything about it, who did anything about it. We just went on with it, because also you're not going to stay by the roadside yourself.
Yeah, it is an interesting one. I think in terms of heat, Robbie, one of the only times I think I've seen the protocol being used was it might have been down in the Dubai Tour, or the UAE Tour a few years ago, maybe in the era of Boone and Cancellara, kind of 2012, 2011.
Yes.
And I think people's riders' tyres were exploding because they were so hot, and I think they just cancelled the stage because the roads were just literally too hot to ride on. I think that might be the only time I've ever seen extreme heat stop a race in recent memory.
Yeah. That's the only one I remember of it stopping the race. I think it was around 46, 47 degrees. I have raced in hotter conditions than that, but it was pre-weather protocol as far as heat goes. It was in the Tour Down Under. It was 52 degrees at one point on course. It cooled down by the finish when a bit of cloud cover came over. It got down to 45. It was so incredibly hot. There were riders going out the back of the peloton, just sort of wobbling out the back. There was real heat distress in the peloton. I've got good news and bad news for the riders as far as the weather goes. There'll be no surprise bad weather as far as rain or cold goes, but the weather in the south of Spain is going to be like this for the next 10 days. 36, 37, 38, 40 degrees. It's going to go on and on.
Well, thank you, Robbie. Yeah. We are not too far away from that protocol at the moment, but the riders just self-regulating here. We've got the breakaway just up the road, holding steady here, and you do have to doff your cap to the two riders out in front. As we see Lance de Plus just taking a bit of feed. Another one of the riders who admitted to really suffering in the heat. Still a pretty solid performance from him. We're actually going to go back a few years now to 2010, the last time the Vuelta visited Sevilla, and it was a team time trial stage won by HTC with Mark Cavendish taking over, ultimately in the red jersey. So 14 years ago. Well, don't things look different? An evening TT, as we have been used to. Controversial team time trial last year, of course, run off in the pitch black, but this was the last time we raced. Headed to Sevilla, and it was HTC who romped to the team time trial victory. And there we go, 55.3 k's an hour, 18 seconds quicker than the next team. And of course, Mark Cavendish, one of the few riders, of course, to ultimately wear the leader's jersey in all of the Grand Tours as well. What a career for Mark Cavendish. Memories, eh?
I think we also saw a very young TJ Van Garderen in the first shot. Looked like him.
Robbie, when you look back, I mean, that was only 14 years ago, but how things have changed, it's amazing, isn't it? It seems that things are changing just quicker and quicker and quicker in terms of the evolution of our sport, the fashions, the kit.
Yeah, well, the aerodynamic advances, and then not to mention all the other scientific advances as far as nutrition and training techniques go, and also just rider development from very young ages. We were talking about this yesterday, I think it was, where riders being plucked out of the juniors and they are treated and they train like professionals from in their mid-teens. So by the time they're ready to turn pro, they're only sort of 19 years old. And we're getting huge performances out of such young riders now. And you know, Sean and I were talking about you go back to Sean's era and then my era. You had to sort of pay your dues, learn a lot from when you started. There's not much you can teach the young kids coming in now in terms of training, nutrition, the science, the aerodynamics. They know everything about all those technical aspects of racing. Of course, there are still things to learn about how it really works in the pro peloton and learn each race as well. Takes some time, but they're coming in red hot.
Yeah, they certainly are for physical. I mean, you've obviously, Nathan, ridden in a team that is at the very vanguard, the very the bleeding edge of technology in terms of training, development, nutrition. I mean, what do you think actually has been, from your personal perspective, the biggest advance in your career?
Oh, that's a good question. I think nutrition was, joining Jumbo-Visma back then. I made 2 steps forward in nutrition straight away, just because we were working with an app on our phone which just said it was called the athlete's food coach. It just said what we had to eat. I would arrive at the buffet, all the food would be there, and it would just say so many grams of rice, so many grams of chicken, so many grams of tomato sauce. It made my life a whole lot easier, and also for me, I was able to lose weight, which I wasn't able to lose before, and on a way that it didn't really feel like a diet. And I think it's in the team there was always a very good balance between science and also your gut feeling.
Or your morale as well, because food's important in terms of the way you feel, you know.
You need to make it a happy moment. I always try to make every meal moment I had a happy moment.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, because otherwise...
I did that when I went back to the room with half a block of Belgian chocolate.
The thing is, he's not lying either.
No, you were a sprinter, Robbie. You were a sprinter, and sprinters get to do it. Sprinters, they don't need to follow the application.
No, glass of wine, bowl of ice cream, half a block of chocolate, and bed.
But the fueling thing is amazing. I mean, Robbie, when we were racing, especially back to our amateur days in the late 80s, because we overlapped in the very early 90s when you were riding on the track and then went and flicked over to the road, everybody would eat the same. Whatever size of rider that you were, whatever your plan was in the race, whatever you'd done leading up to it, it was one size fits all. And as a young rider, you often ate till you were full, and then a bit more on top because you didn't really know how you'd have to sort of, and then as you got older you kind of learned, but it was all a kind of vocational learning process, wasn't it? Really old school influences, and we never really got it right, I guess, and it's only now that we're exploiting, we're understanding how really to fuel properly. We'll get on to that. I'll ask you that in a second. But yeah. Fueling, big topic. 64 k's to go, 2 minutes and 3/4 for our brave souls out in front. And back to our chat on nutrition, because the race is moving so slowly, Rob. But yeah, Rob, it has moved on, isn't it? But back in the early days, it was very, very, it was completely analog, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. You ate till you were full. You piled in as much as you possibly could because you knew that it was so incredibly difficult, if not impossible, in a Grand Tour to have a calorie intake that matched the calorie output throughout a Grand Tour. Whatever happened, you were losing weight throughout a Grand Tour, so you piled in the food and ate like a pig, really. And it was much less scientific. It was just like, this is what there is, and get it into you. When I turned pro with the Rabobank team, which is the same organisation that is now Visma Lease Bike, and Ackerman's part of that team, the Dutch in that organisation were, I found, always at the forefront of this evolution of nutrition. I remember working with nutritionists within the team, and they were coming up with all these newfangled nutrition supplements, so energy drinks and ones that you could assimilate much more easily, that wouldn't turn your gut inside out and they give you cramps and all sorts of other digestive tract inconveniences, put it that way. And it's come to what it is now with all the nutrition sort of tricks and sort of things they're using now, and down to the ketones, which I think is, from what I hear, I never used it in training or racing because it just wasn't around then, but from what I hear from riders, and Nathan can speak more about this, that has been a massive game changer about how much riders can fuel what they can get into the body, keep in the body, and assimilate and use for output.
Yeah, I agree on the fact that ketones are a very big improvement in the last few years, and I always felt very good using ketones, and I always slept very well when I had them during the day. But on the other hand, also ketones only work or are only effective whenever you have all the rest 100% right. If you're gonna have ketones in your recovery or during your training or whenever you want to take it, but you're gonna have a glass of wine and a box and a block of Belgian chocolate, then it's not gonna make any difference. I mean, you need to have your nutrition 100% right. You need to have a great massage. Your bike needs to be the fastest as well. Then it will make a difference. But I think now in the pro peloton, most teams they're using ketones, and in my opinion, it only makes a difference whenever you have all the rest right.
So it's part of a broader strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some teams, and this is a word that I found really interesting, is that the rider and the bicycle, they call it a system now. So like the rider and the bike are one, and it's really to hear that phrase, that terminology, we look at the riding system, it's like, well, the bike and the rider combined is something that, to me and you, Robbie, again, is something that, and maybe to riders just 3 or 4 years ago, is a whole new kind of concept. But it does, the more you think about it, the more it actually makes sense. It's getting every single element right, from the kit on the bike, your position on the bike, your fueling strategy. It is all in one. Well, we're going to speak to a man who's been up there in a bunch of kicks over the last few days. Corbin Strong of Israel Premier Tech, as the rider just pass under a welcome fire hose.
Corbin, after the first test in the mountains, how are you feeling for this sprint stage?
Yeah, I'm excited for an easier day. It was super hot yesterday, and yeah, a bit of a wake-up call that it's going to be a long 3 weeks in the mountains. So I enjoyed it though. It was nice to suffer a bit, and today I think the heat's going to be the main cause of the suffering. But looking forward to another opportunity in the sprint. 43
degrees in Sevilla today.
Yeah, that's very intimidating. So yeah, thankfully the course itself isn't too intimidating. I think it's a pretty straightforward sprint day. So yeah, it's just the heat we all have to compete with today.
Is this the easiest day of this Vuelta, on paper at least?
Yeah, I think on paper it looks like the easiest day, but anything can happen. There's a couple of sections where the wind could cause havoc, but I think it's going to be as close to a rest day as you can get in the Volta. So hopefully it's straightforward, and hopefully we can pull off a good result in the finish.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Corbin Strong there, giving his views. But, he thinks this might be the easiest day in terms of sat in the wheels. I'd imagine it is today. It's just more the keeping cool that's the hardest thing. We just saw the riders passing underneath a fire engine that had been parked at the side of the road, just cascading water down on everybody to cool them down. And some good results so far in this Vuelta by Corbin Strong. 24, third on stage 3, sorry, third on stage 2, should I say, 6th on stage 3. And Robbie, he is a very fast rider, but more of a puncher Strong, isn't he? I think when you look at the riders we have here, it's certainly not, and I say this respectfully, a top-tier sprinter, but definitely could mix it, but would probably prefer a slightly uphill finish.
Yeah, something that's a bit more of a drag, say a kilometre or two at 4, even 5%. That's something he deals with very, very well. I remember when he burst onto the scene, it was the Tour of Britain. It was an uphill, really tough uphill finish. It was the first time I came across the name Corbin Strong. I went, wow, this kid's got some stuff, and he's proven on those sorts of finishes to really come into his own and be competitive with the very best. The problem he has here in this Vuelta is there's a guy by the name of Wout van Aert who also loves that sort of finish, and Caden Groves is also not out of his element on those types of finishes. So, but Corbin Strong, he's definitely, if he has a great day, things really go his way. He has the potential to take on those top two that we keep talking about, Van Aert and Groves, and maybe just get the better of them. The same goes for Pavel Bittner. He's also a guy who likes a tough dragging finish, although today's is pancake flat in Sevilla. Really wide roads. It'll be interesting to see how they've got the finish set up exactly, because it's, when I was looking at it on the approach to the finish, it was something like an 8-lane road on the lead into the finish. So there should be plenty of room to move.
Yeah.
If you get boxed in, you've done something wrong.
Yeah, it does look pretty. The two right-handers do look pretty wide as well. Not overly technical, and of course when you pick up that tailwind. But just 59 k's to go here, Nathan. Visma, Lisa Bike are on the front, tapping out that kind of rhythm. But what? Just a quick one before you leave the booth. Switching the kind of stage we've had so far, and Corbin Strong hit the nail on the head. If you're sat in the wheels, you're going to be maybe putting out 150 watts, 170 watts. It's not. But what about suddenly when it flicks on? How did you adapt to that? Because sometimes, especially on a stage like this, it's relax, 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 and then it's game on, isn't it? For the GC riders, in terms of getting in the right position, keeping them protected, and for the sprint teams as well. Because on this sort of stage, there's going to be a switch that splits.
Yeah, I always found it quite difficult to immediately switch on, you know, like sometimes I just went to the car I got some bottles and I did an effort alongside the peloton, just as fast as I could in the saddle, just tried to pass the peloton and right to the front to my teammate, just to open up my legs a little bit. And like Caden Groves said in his interview a few days ago, he likes to do a big sprint on such an easy day when he also has to sprint in the final. So I think we can expect maybe also riders like Corbin Strong, Arne Marit, Pavel Bittner contending the intermediate sprint, just to open up their legs a little bit and just see how they cope with an effort in the heat. I mean, this heat, once you go over your limit for a long time, it's very hard to cool down. So I think many riders would want to do like a short sprint or like a small opener, but it doesn't need to be too long, I think.
Exactly. I mean, and Robbie, from your perspective, a man that's obviously won multiple stages in Grand Tours, been fighting it out for the points jersey. How did you take them? Because although the intermediate sprints, the classifications have actually changed, still back in your day there were green jersey points out on the road, but then you'd have eyes on that and then eyes on the finish. How did you mentally approach them? Were they all 100%, or was it more like just doing the least amount you could for the best kind of benefit? Because you do want to open up, you don't want to go too deep, do you?
Well, in my situation, I was always obliged to go for them. I was trying to win green jersey in the Tour de France, for example. And although I would have liked to have done that as economically as possible, I got the points for free if nobody else was going to contest. It was just never the case.
Yeah.
Up against the likes of Thor Hushovd, Eric Sabel, Tom Bourne and those sort of guys, you were just riding 100% sprint every time. And I mean, one side I didn't mind it. I thought it helped switch me on a bit. Although when they're a little bit closer to the finish, I was reluctant to go all out, but you were given no choice. If you wanted to be in green by the end of the race, you had to give it everything intermediate sprints and then deal with what your legs are doing for the final sprint for the stage victory. But definitely, even if you're not in contention for the jersey, you'll see riders often just following the wheels. It's almost like getting your eye in. It's that warm-up sprint, like Nathan said. It's an effort you make. Follow the wheels, be up there. Even if you stay in the slipstream and don't sprint through the line, it's a bit of a switching on moment, and it also gets you in the right mental space to take on what's going to happen at the finish.
Yeah, we're just trying to describe the physical side of it, as you say, Nathan, especially after a long day in these sorts of heats, like extreme cold, extreme heat. It actually affects you not just physically but mentally as well, and actually tuning in and trying to get super focused isn't as easy as all that in these sorts of conditions as well. You might be physically in an okay place, but mentally you've got to wake up, haven't you, as well?
Yeah, and you need to get into the zone, into the right zone. It doesn't go like you don't get into the zone just like that. You know, there needs to happen something. You feel the pressure from the peloton a little bit. Also, like we can see now already a little bit. It's Team Visma Leasebike who's controlling, but behind everybody is already a little bit. Yeah, now it's a little bit like, yeah, we don't really care about our position yet, but we also don't want to be too far back. So
yeah,
we're gonna go to the front just in case, because I think they're approaching the final hill. They're going into the descent now, and then they will be approaching the final final hill of the day.
Yeah, we've got about a 5k climb coming up. You can just see they're just dropping down. Beautiful, beautiful countryside here. Scorching hot in Andalusia. That's the region that we're moving into today. You can just see how relatively low as well the level is on this lake, just by the shores. Absolutely gorgeous. I would imagine one or two riders might just fancy swinging off to the side of the road, Robbie, and taking a dive.
It's a thought I often had on hot days when we pass a body of water.
Back in the pioneering days of the Grand Tours, that's the sort of thing that riders would actually do. They'd either nip into a shop, get a few beers, stick them in the back pocket, nip into a fountain in a local village, and maybe just have a little bit of a paddle in the sea. But no hope for the riders today as we head ever nearer the finish in Seville. So still our two solitary souls out in front. Ibon Ruiz is the man on the front for Kern Pharma in the green, sitting at 24 minutes and 6 seconds behind Primož Roglič, our new race leader. Horisti just taking his turn on the front, 16:23 behind. Just an illustration of how big the time gaps are already in this race. And Nathan, looking right down the GC yesterday was particularly difficult. I didn't expect to see such big time gaps amongst everybody, really.
Yeah, that's true. And I was thinking about it yesterday evening a little bit more about the stage in general. We were talking about it was a very hard stage. It was a difficult stage, but in the end it came down to the steepest 3 kilometers were a 12-minute effort for the first rider. So the 12-minute effort is actually relatively short and actually quite quite an explosive finish, and a rider like Primož Roglič is way better in these kind of efforts than a rider like Sepp Kuss or Adam Yates, for example. Adam Yates is also somebody who is somebody who performs very well on fatigue resistance. He can have a very hard mountain stage and make his and then the best Adam Yates, I must say, will show itself.
Yeah, it was. And maybe when you drill down a bit further in relation to Bora taking it up so relatively early and showing us that it was going to be a day for Primož, is because of the dynamics of that particular climb, Robbie. Is that climb in particular did suit him to try and get some time early, and that's exactly what he's done. He's already created a fair bit of separation so early in the race. We've got another relatively challenging day tomorrow, a third category climb to finish with that I think will create some time gaps. Whether there's a break up the road or not, that remains to be seen. But maybe they looked to that and said, the condition that Roglič is in now, we have to try and take time when we can.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We saw in the time trial on the opening day that Roglič performed really well, so the writing was on the wall. He's turned up at this Vuelta in really good condition, despite the injury he sustained at the Tour de France, which forced him to abandon. And the fact that they rode yesterday, there were people questioning, is this too much too soon? They're expending a lot of energy. Well, they're getting the day off today in the wheels. The sprinters teams are taking care of it. Tomorrow is not a mountain stage or a huge summit finish, or there's Upper Cat 3. The next really big appointment of what you'd call a proper mountain stage is not until stage 9. So I found it a good idea to utilise the form that Roglič is currently in. And on a climb like yesterday that suits him perfectly. He performs really well on steep climbs, and he did the deal.
Welcome back. To those of you who've been on a commercial break. Nothing, I'm going to pick your brains about one particular rider. I thought we were going to see an attack then from Jaco, but it's not. Just moved over to the other side of the road. Robert Geesink is in his final season as a pro, a rider that you've ridden alongside for a few years. Lovely to see at the start of the race as well. He was given a brand new bike, special colour scheme, some kit as well. Just doing quite a long turn. He's swung off now. But tell us a little bit about Geesink, because what a career he's had.
Well, it's unbelievable what kind of career Robert has had. I mean, now for people that get into cycling now, he's a domestique. But actually, when he turned pro, and I must say, I also heard it from my teammates, because I wasn't into cycling when he turned pro. He turned professional as one of the biggest talents, and I think in his first Grand Tour he finished 7th from the top of my head. So that's an amazing performance, an amazing career. He won a few Grand Tour stages. Very talented rider, winner of the Tour of California. But also as a person, he has a lot of knowledge, a lot of know-how about how to approach a GC, for example. And I think when Jonas was young and was learning. A rider like Robert, but also Steven Kruiswijk. These are the riders that where you need to go to ask for help and ask for tips. And also in this Grand Tour we have Kian Uitenbroeks, also very very young rider with a lot
18 years between them.
Yeah,
it's like crazy, isn't it?
Robert and Steven, they will be helping them. But I did one Grand Tour with Robert, was the Vuelta in 2021, and from what I remember from the top of my head, that was that he cannot ride slow. He always, I'm sure today the teammates are telling him, Robert, ride a bit slower, please, because you're gonna catch the breakaway. He just has, like, his average pace is so high compared to the rest of the peloton that that's also probably why he's so good in what he does right now, controlling breakaways and being a supportive rider in the team. But yeah, I can only speak good about what is. He's a big personality in the peloton.
Yeah, one of the elder statesmen, I think it's fair to say. 38 years of age now. Started off his pro career. His first year with the structure of Rabobank, which, as we talked about now, is essentially Visma Lease. About the same infrastructure, was actually back in 2006. He rode for the Conti team there, and then jumped up to the pro team in 2007. So a long and illustrious career. But importantly, not just going through the motions, he has a key role in the team in relation to keeping the pace high here, and also, as you say, that experience that he passes on to the younger generation. It looks like they're actually slowing things down considerably here. It looks like there might have been an incident actually on the side of the road. Unfortunately, that does appear to have been the case. So a slight funneling off. Not too sure what's happened there. Hopefully everybody's okay. It looked like there was some sort of incident that was being monitored. Never good to see. As we park over this, as we fly, should I say, over this beautiful natural park. It is a stunning part of the world. This part of Spain has its own identity. A lot of it desert, but also green. But as we head deeper into this race, we'll be heading away from this more scorched landscape into the more verdant terrain of the north of Spain. Different sort of hills, different sort of climate. And Robbie, it's as we head into the north, deeper into this race, it is completely different. It's got its own sort of microclimate, isn't it? In the area near the Basque area up in the north, a lot more humid, a lot wet. It's the wettest part of Spain, so it really is a country of contrast, isn't it?
It is. You know, you get into the high mountains, you'll see quite cool conditions. When you get further up north, or even down the south, you go into the high mountains, it'll be quite a welcome relief. But certainly down here, you can only dream of a microclimate that's a little bit cooler than where the race is at the moment. Yeah, it'll be hallucinating and thinking you're riding into cooler conditions, but you're just not. You just got to pity the riders in conditions like this, and the fact that they're soldiering on, and you've got brave souls like these two that are willing to go off the front on a day like this, knowing that basically they're just going to get reeled back in. Their efforts aren't going to come to much at all, other than maybe staying off the front for a KOM and an intermediate sprint. But the intermediate sprint coming quite late today.
Yeah, 24.6 to go.
Yeah, so it's. I mean, they don't need to catch them, but there's a distinct possibility that they already will catch them by then.
We're going to lose quite a lot of elevation in a bit. We're just kicking up this big main road climb, as you can see. We just saw our leaders go past this cluster of fans that have weathered this atrociously hot day today. And despite these hot conditions, people coming out to support the Vuelta in a really sparsely populated part of Spain. But we are heading nearer Seville. Big main road climbs. And as Nathan was talking about, a little bit more structure, and the pace has just lifted ever so slightly here.
And the peloton has been split in two.
Yeah, split in two, yeah. We're just going through a bit of a feed zone. You can just see that flag up the side of the road there, just giving us a real clear indication of the wind direction right on the nose as well. And it's not a light wind, it's a pretty tough wind here.
Yeah, but there is some nervosity right now. It's this is not like the peloton should behave with the breakaway 2 minutes up the road and with 51k to go, so probably there is something coming soon that the riders might be a little bit nervous for, because like what we saw earlier, the shot when the peloton was on the left side and the right side, that is really because like whenever you choose one side of the road, then you can only get passed by from one side. Makes it very easy to control things. And that most of the time that only happens when it's like very nervous or you're going towards a crucial moment. So I'm very curious what's going to happen right now.
Yeah, we're going to top this climb, and I'm just wondering whether it's for this descent. I mean, I'm just looking at the race profile. The descent that they come up isn't actually quite as steep as the one they've come up, but they will be descending, Robbie, for the best part of 20Ks. And there's a few riders actually caught in the wind at the back here. just being popped out the back as the pace has definitely ramped up and the time gap has plummeted. They've lost about 30 seconds in only a couple of Ks here, Robbie.
Yeah, it's a bit of a struggle. I think it's just a habit that, you know, the teams of the GC contenders, etc., they always have this habit of pushing to the front when they come to the top of the climb. They're always aware that when you get to the top, it's more exposed. If the wind happens to be slightly different in direction, don't get caught out. So they're all sort of racing each other to be at the front and stay out of danger and stay safe, and it just pushes things on and makes it quite nasty.
Here's Caden Groves. Well, he is there. Doesn't appear like we've got the audio. Oh, they've turned him up.
No favourites up the road, and hopefully we can have an easy day as possible.
And very interesting as well, the fight for the green jersey. It's going to be also interesting from today in the future. So how it's going to be between Wout and yourself with the coming of the mountain stage?
Yeah, I think I would really like us to wear the green as long as possible, and hopefully we take that back today. But I think in the long run, Wout will survive the mountains a lot better because of the positioning of the intermediate sprints. They're always quite close to the finish, so we have to take it day by day, and at the moment I'm not stressed at all. I just want to take stage win number 2.
Thank you, good luck.
It was good to hear from Caden Groves. Always gives very explicit, clear answers. And Robbie just explained as well how important that win was the other day, because it's been, I wouldn't say a difficult year for him, but if you're paid to win bike races, he is, you know, a very, very good sprinter. Had a real difficult Giro because he didn't quite get across the line first so many times. I mean, I've lost count of how many seconds and thirds he had in the Giro d'Italia, but the sprint talent out of the Giro was absolutely stacked. Different here, but how much confidence will he gain from that win the other day?
Well, it'll mean a huge amount to Caden Groves. You know, it was a year without winning a race, and I'll say he actually has had a difficult year. He sustained a knee injury early on, which saw him out of racing for a couple of months, and came into the Giro, as you said, in a really stacked field. The likes of Jonathan Milan, Tim Merlier, both taking 3 stages each, and Groves was sort of knocking at the door, but just couldn't quite get it done. He had a bunch of podium positions throughout the Giro. Let's see, he was 3rd on the final day. He had 2 thirds and 2 seconds. So that's frustrating for a sprinter when you haven't won for that long. There's a massive, it's not a monkey off his back, it's a gorilla off his back at this race by getting that stage win, and you know, particularly taking on Wout van Aert. Although it's talent-wise in the sprinters field in this Vuelta, it is, you know, on the very low end of, you know, superstars, but it still is so incredibly hard to win a stage. And you even saw what it meant to Wout van Aert, where you know, he's won so much at such a high level, and he got here in the Vuelta, got his stage, and he even said after the finish, and he said finally, because it had been so long before between raising his arms in victory, and Caden Groves would have felt very much the same, and yeah, huge confidence boost. But I think then the day after Caden Groves won, he overthought it on the way to the finish. He was sat in the saddle, in the wheel of his teammate. He got inside 200 metres and hadn't gone yet, and Wout van Aert simply got the jump on him. He just started on time, got around over the top of Groves, came back in towards the barrier, and Groves had to back out and go the long way round. I think he made a real mistake, because the way he came back at Wout van Aert in the final 100 metres once he got some clear air, it said to me that he could have just launched his sprint, and it would have been highly likely he just would have gone 2 for 2 and won again. But it also shows you've just got to get absolutely everything right if you're going to win, stacked field or not. When there's 2 star sprinters like Van Aert and Groves, it's going to be difficult for either of them.
It certainly is. Just while you were talking there, Robbie, there was a little bit of movement in the peloton. We were wondering why there was a bit of activity. The pace has ramped up considerably. Rui Costa in the centre there, the Portuguese road champion, former world champion, of course, and again, one of the most experienced riders in the peloton. Been around for a long time and is a wily fox, that is sure, one of the most tactically astute riders out there. But I was wondering, just over the top of that little rise, as we start to lose elevation, heading quite quickly now, I think we'll see the average speed and Nathan ramp up considerably here. 46.2 Ks to go, 22 Ks to the intermediate sprint. It looked like there might have been a little bit of crosswind just over the top, so we saw everybody just getting in position, not necessarily to do anything, but just to be there just in case they weren't. They'll be kept on the back foot, basically.
Yeah, you don't want to miss out. You always want to be there just in case if something happens. Then we are there, and then also you can't be blamed, you know. And that's the thing with professional cycling. Everybody knows it might not happen, but if it happens, we want to be there.
There's the speed, and this gap is tumbling now. Two riders out in front. I would imagine, given the rate that the peloton are moving at, as you can see, 60 k's an hour compared to 41 k's an hour. That equates on the road at this sort of speed to about 800 meters, and the gap a minute. It wouldn't surprise me if this breakaway is actually caught before we get to the intermediate sprint, the only intermediate sprint, the only bonus out there at all on a barren stage that's been run off at a hot pace now and a very, very hot temperature. But back to Wilkin back in the booth. I'm sure he's refreshed. He certainly looks refreshed to me. Maybe we'll get the lowdown of what he had for lunch in a few moments' time. Carlton Kirby's back in the booth to take us through to the finish in Sevilla. It looks like Carlton, this break might be caught. Minutes gap, 20 k's intermediate sprint, and we're losing elevation.
Makes sense. I'll leave the building, go out for a little break. Thought I'll just check, and it's all sped up.
It has.
There's no break at all.
Yeah, they'll be glad. I tell you what, Robbie, they'll be glad there's descent for a little bit of cooling. But again, when it's this warm, it's just like a hairdryer in your face, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just so oppressively hot, and maybe they're just keen to get to the finish and get this over with and get in the ice bath, because there's not a lot going on in terms of the wind, the course. There's no particularly difficult corners or changes of direction coming up. It's like they're just inciting each other. Someone went a bit faster, so the other team did. The other teams thought, well, they're going faster and racing for the front, we better do it too. And then you get a situation like this. Then you have some cooler heads that sit behind and say, nothing to panic about. We'll just hang back here, wait for a moment later, and then we'll strike.
To be honest, fellas, I think on days like this, you must know this, Matt, as well, you get a bit bored. If you get an opportunity to have a dig like this, then you want to take it.
Exactly. Well, we've been having a bit of a podcast in the mid part of the race. And we've had lettuce leaf chat from trying to cool ourselves down back in the 1980s, all sorts, and everything in between. But we just saw Primož Roglič actually drift into the front. I'm not saying that there's not tension in the peloton, but we're in this phase now, aren't we, where they're just readying themselves for the finale, and then they've got this warm-up bit. But you can really sense there's a bit more tension and a bit more structure about the work rate now in the bunch.
Yeah, most definitely. And even a team like Lidl Trek can go onto the front, but particularly when the team of the race leader goes to the front, everybody's eyes just go straight on them, and it just it incites the rest to make more of an effort. And other team directors, they see what's happening on their screens and they say, okay, they're going to the front for a reason, let's not get caught out and get up there.
Oh, it's busy. Love a bit of busy because it's been so slow for much of the day, but profile of the day is almost entirely changed, certainly the complexion of it. And temperature wise, well, I can also tell you that the heat's come out of the day as well. We're around about 32 Celsius, which is more than acceptable. It's like holiday for you.
Well, I've had to put my cardigan on.
You're going to say Sean
speaking now.
Sean's been on a holiday. I'm due for a little break. I've been waiting for Sean to come back in.
He's here.
Sean's back. He's fueled up for the finish.
Nutrition.
He's got,
I tell you what,
he's got a proper strategy for the final few Ks. I tell you what, Kelly is going to be flying into the finale. I will bid you farewell, guys. All the best for the finish. I'm looking forward to watching this.
Sean's waving his hand saying, no, not yet, not yet. He just picked up a plank of Twix. Maybe I'll put a picture up. 19 seconds only, intermediate sprint coming up, a lot at stake, particularly for the green jersey. Multiple points today, 50 on the line because it's a sprinter's day, and of course any opportunity to take a hatful right now by Caden Groves. He wants a bit of a cushion if he can possibly build one in the green jersey competition. First of all, he's got to overtake certain Mr. Wout van Aert, thanks to Matt Stevens, who now exits stage left. Robbie McEwen is going to take himself a little bit of a break as well before you head off, Robs. You had a bit of a lie-in this morning. Well, this evening for you.
This evening I did. Well, I joined the guys and Laura on the breakaway this evening at the top of the show, and I thought I'd come in late, do a stint. I'm going to take another little break just now and come back and join you just on the run into the intermediate sprint and then right through to the finish. Just going to go take a few deep breaths and see if I can find myself a plank of chocolate like Monsieur Kelly.
I look at it and I think, where does he put it? He'll speak to us in a minute. Thanks, Robbie. We'll see you in a little bit. 19 seconds is the gap. It was down to about 16, so it's kind of bouncing. I can't imagine that Caden Groves and Cindy Koenig will not let this slip by. It's not going to happen. It's the intermediate sprint, by the way, is at 24.6 kilometres to go. So it's worth just making sure that these guys are within arm's reach, and it kind of feels that way. Not quite sure who they're going to give the combativity award to at the end of the day, but they're going to have to wrestle for it. The fairest way would be just to be last man standing. I can't understand, however, why on earth there was not a categorised climb a few minutes ago, because we had some quite sterling, I must admit, percentages to deal with, and nary an offer there was. Meanwhile, everybody else, I think after a day where they've been at ease, have decided that they need to put their fast legs back on, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Talking 60 kilometres an hour, there is always the chance of a change of direction and indeed crosswind out there, and almost the very threat of it. If one team responds, then just about everybody else is going to come and try and get into the gap, and that's what we're seeing right now. So hold on to your hats for the intermediate sprint, but for the time being, I'm kind of surprised that it's got as lively as it has. Gap's down to 15 seconds, 40 kilometres out on a sprint day. That's a bit of an early catch, Sean, with as they pass by here, the the field of solar panels here. Not one of my favourite things on the planet, but anyway, only 12 seconds. Is it too early to catch him, Sean?
Yes, it is, and surprising that they're getting so active here back in the peloton. As we can see, the gap is coming down. I thought they'd be relaxed. I was hoping I'd be a bit relaxed myself to have my Twix fingers there with my coffee, but you've thrown me in already, Carlton, here, and you're like the riders in the peloton here are starting to get nervous here, and you can see the speed is on, 58 kilometres per hour in the last 10 minutes, 11 seconds. This is coming down quickly, and as we talked about earlier, we go to this sprint point at 24 kilometres to go, and then we get into the pretty urban area, and it's a lot of street furniture, so it will be a very rapid finish from the time we get to the media sprint. But it's already pretty much full-on racing here for the moment.
It is concrete planking almost, as you can see on the road. If you look at their wrists and elbows, you can see it's jigging away. It's not the smoothest surface, quite a heavy one that we've got. Still a ways off our intermediate sprint, but it's the curve in the road that's causing the problem, and the fact that we've got ourselves a little bit of a breeze. Now, we've had a crosswind for much of the day, but you haven't really noticed it. They've been moderately well protected, but this is wide open countryside at the moment. No dust being kicked up, which kind of tells you the wind's not that strong. But even the suspicion of it, Sean, especially with some fresh legs that we have today, and there will have been some riders that kind of tried to take it easy yesterday and just kind of come home knowing that their duties are going to be in support of others. And today, I think after a quiet stage, you kind of want to stretch your legs just a little bit, and maybe that's factored in. There's some fresh legs there, if not fresh minds in this heat.
Well, there's still riders here with a lot of energy to give in this final, and of course the easier racing in the earlier part of the day, although really hot conditions, they're still quite looking forward to the race here. But I think it's just what it's out ahead. I think the intermediate sprint point, they know after that you get in pretty much to the city of Seville, and then it will be a very, very fast racing, so that's the reason it's all getting nervous.
Breakaway caught after doing a duty for 140 kilometres, Sean, almost thankless. I don't know how they're going to decide who gets the combativity. Can they give it to two?
I have never seen it. Don't remember seeing that, but yes, what a ride by these two guys, considering what was lying out ahead. the race today was always going to be where the peloton would control and try and take it down to a sprint, and that's what we see now, all back together, 37 plus kilometres to go, and we're getting ever so close to that intermediate sprint point. And yeah, that's the reason they all want to be in position now, and maybe the direction as well changing a little bit with that wind we've seen. They're getting the call from the director of Sport East, and that's what's really making them nervous.
Yep, it is. Get to the front, make sure you don't miss out. And just the very threat of missing out on something is enough to just get riders into position. And here we are, intermediate sprints declared for you. It's still got over 12 kilometres to go before we get there. And this, you never know, it might be a kind of a battle of attrition almost. Just instill a bit of pace here and maybe just take some of the heat out of the likes of Caden Groves. He's clever enough not to fall for it just for the time being, and he's well protected by indeed his team. He's got the best lead out here. Whether or not they'll be fully committed, we've seen him less than fully committed at the intermediates earlier on in this race, but I think that was a misreading of where the sprint line was, and I've got a feeling that he is going to be fully up for this. With so many sprint points at the end today, Sean, 50 then 40, it's a big jump all of a sudden between first and second. If it is to be Groves versus Van Aert, then it kind of feels like it's almost magnified in its importance today.
Well, I think the green jersey classification is between the two guys, the two faster men here, and it is going to be a one where they're thinking about the stage win, but they're also thinking about this intermediate sprint point where there is quite a number of points to be picked up now that there's nobody out in front in the breakaway. And also, you know, we've talked a bit about it, and we heard the guys talking earlier to make that effort just to open up before the final sprint. You know, when you're riding like this in the peloton, although they're going at a very fast pace, the guys in the front are making the big effort, but the guys in the group here are sitting in, you know, 5 or 6 places back from the front. You're getting that drafting effect, so you need some riders need that little bit of an opener, and you know, to get involved here in this intermediate sprint. And of course, the guys who are going for green jersey, they have, you know, an objective there, so they will have a go for it. And yeah, then the sprint at the finish is going to be about do your best, try and win the stage, and with that comes the points for the green jersey.
Some spectacular sights along the way as we head to our destination of Sevilla today. We have seen some spectacular architecture, including the Plaza de Espada, yeah, Spanish Square, why not? The Hospital Las Chico Lagas. You'll be glad to know that Rob Hatch is going to be joining us this weekend with these sorts of pronunciations. I'm doing my best. However, right now, they're not looking indeed to take in any of the sights. It's nose in the wind just for now. All helpers to the fore. And just make sure nothing silly happens in the wide open plains where the rain mostly falls in Spain, apparently, according to the legend. Time to stock up with water, so the pace appears at least to have been knocked back ever so slightly, perhaps back here, but we were nudging up 58, 60 kilometres per hour. A little bit of easement. I think as they're all together, Sean, and the wind didn't blow, they've kind of thought about it again.
Yes, well, you know, if one team starts to push on the front immediately, there's 3 or 4 other teams wanting, you know, be up there with them. And we did see at a point probably 15 or 20 kilometres earlier where there was 2 bunches, one, you know, left and right, and then the centre of the road was totally open, and you know, it's sort of a drag race between those teams. And when the teams start to do that, the others get involved and the pace goes up, but then they say, what are we doing this for? You know, there's no wind whatsoever really, it's not any danger, we're still on these very straight roads. And then, you know, they realise we have to knock it back a bit with, you know, 35 kilometres plus to go.
Here we are then, peloton almost as wide as it is long at the moment. Not much room to move through. You have to go on the very extremities. And well, if you want extreme, then Thomas Degen is he's a man who likes to invest in himself sometimes. I think this is just him saying, look, I've not had many opportunities. I am racing here. It is his last Grand Tour, Sean, and you know, he still wears a beard even when it's this hot, for goodness sake. What's going on?
Well, he probably wants to leave everybody knowing Belgium is in the Vuelta.
I think so. That's what it is. Well, he makes you talk about him. Half a devil remaining with 33.3 kilometres of this stage, and hellish has been the temperature. Thankfully, it's eased off just a little bit. We came down from nudging, 43 Celsius, according to Lara Messiga, at the start. And the wisdom of getting underway so late in the afternoon, where the real temperature was at the beginning today, as Thomas de Gent has done his reminder. He is here. There will be Thomas de Gent kind of days here, and don't be surprised if he takes himself a stage. We'll try and badge that one up for you as best we can. But if you want the cheeky one, stage 11 has got Thomas de Gent written all over it. I quite fancy him for stage 11. You might have a go at 8, but there'll be a few days where he's up the road.
We can see there he is. Is
he bidoned up?
A musette full of bidons there, so he just wanted to get to that side of the peloton where all his teammates are hanging out there, and he did a good job. He took 4 or 5 bike lengths, held it for a while. So I think he was doing a bit of both. He wanted to let us know that he's in the race and also doing his daily job.
Well, that's the way it should be. And now he's handing out. Couldn't quite see it, but it is upon his back, and he's just making sure that everyone gets a clean one. These vests that they use to sort of post the bidons in, and of course the musettes as well that carry a whole raft of them if they're taken properly. Much better than having a sweaty bottle from down a Jersey, I must admit. But there you go. There is a pecking order when it comes to the salty nozzles. You don't want that. Meanwhile, into town we come. And the architecture here is absolutely beguiling. I mean, they must have built most of it during the winter time, for goodness sake. It's the only landlocked city, by the way, in Spain that has a port. And so here you are, some large, what look like they're almost seagoing vessels here, but rivers and canals do indeed converge in this place. What you're looking at the moment is the Tower of Gold, the Torre del Oro. I know that much. 36 metres tall, it was built in 1221. There we are. Little did they know that communication masts would be required in the future. The same deal with the Eiffel Tower, actually. They were going to tear that down after the Great Exhibition, and then suddenly radio came along and they thought, I'll tell you what, leave it up. There's no way we'll get permission for an antenna that big. Anyway, 31.2 kilometres, you get it all here. And indeed the goodies are still being handed out. Get them in your pockets as best as you can, as quickly as you possibly can. Still a long way out in the sort of heat we've had today, Sean. You're going to want a drink, everyone is, before the end.
Well, I think they will be important to you keep on getting the fresh bottles for the riders, because with this heat they've been in all day. The days to come as well, it's very important that you hydrate very well. And the bidon closes at 10 kilometres to go, so with these warm conditions it's a bit normal here, but yeah, still 30 kilometres to go. You need to make sure that everybody is okay for water, energy drinks, all of that, and the domestics, that's their job to do now before we get into the real fast stuff.
Well, hold on to your hats, as they say, because it's going to get busy. And in fact, we're just coming up to the approach in 6 kilometres time, just shy of that. We are going to have our intermediate sprint. So it will be the green jersey, and in fact he's being marshalled up, as you can possibly see. Wout van Aert is here, he owns that. Will he own it at the end of the day? Well, Caden Groves is out to rip it off his back. First duty for Groves is to take the intermediate sprint. He's got enough firepower around him to guide him beautifully when we get to our finale today. There's our King of the Mountains man. He didn't really have too much work to do today, quite frankly. I think we could have had a category 4 or even a category 3 on the climb that we had only 10 kilometers ago, but the answer was no. So Sylvain Moniquet of Lotto Destiny, Lotto really making us talk about him today, carrying the polka dots, and he will do indeed into tomorrow's stage, destination Junquera. And indeed a rather scary category 1 climb early on. If we all get over that, there is a lot of regathering room. Maybe it is a Thomas de Gent day tomorrow. Let's find out, shall we? So our sprint is at La Algaba, and indeed we're less than 5 kilometers to go before we get there, and so it's time to start racking up for the time being. Israel Premier Tech. They were busy yesterday. They're getting busy again. I believe it is they. Never quite know from this distance whether it's them or indeed Decathlon AG2 on a Mondial. In fact, it's the latter. There we are on the left-hand side of your screen as you look at it at the moment. It is Decathlon. So Sander de Pestel. Just wanted to make sure that he's in a decent place. Ben O'Connor had a howler yesterday. Found himself way down the order, further down anyway than he would have hoped. Minute 11, not as bad as some, I have to add as well, but we'll see how he rolls through. And right now, guess what? Double denim to the fore. It had to be, didn't it? Caden Groves has called for action, and his team are lining up ready to deliver him. I'll wait till you see his kind of ski visor in a few moments' time. They're busy collecting him on the left-hand side of the road. He's been busy following the wheel of Wout van Aert, who looks like he might actually hobo on their lead out, but he has got Attila Valter in front of him at the moment. Hungarian champion Attila Valter with the green sash around his belly, as you can see, as that flag is writ large and lovely around him. Primož Roglic just staying safe if it does get a little bit hectic here. I can't imagine it's going to get too worrisome for anybody. But Wout van Aert and Visma Lease bike just screened at the moment. UAE Team Emirates making sure that they just make a good fist of this in terms of safety, because if there is any jostling, last thing you want is to come down at a moment like this, Sean, especially when the pace has picked up today for the first time.
Yes, well, the last thing anybody wants is, to get tied up in a crash and, just having to do that chase back here. And they're all a little bit concerned. I think the intermediate sprint points at 24.6 to go, and then we're into the city built-up area. And I think that is the concern here, that this is starting to wind up quite a long ways out before the intermediate sprint, where other days we see it went down to maybe a kilometre, a little bit of surge, or a kilometre 0.5, then a bit of up in pace, and they make the sprint and it's knocked off again. They're all concerned that, if a team really pushes it on after the intermediate sprint point, a lot of road furniture, they're all concerned about that, and that is the reason it's going that bit faster.
Verwijk just stopping in. Casper Pedersen might well be a bit more of a feature today than perhaps you would have thought. We will see, but Verwijk just getting a lazy change. I don't mean he's lazy, it's just that there's not a great deal of urgency at the moment. The pace seems to have just ebbed ever so slightly, and in fact there'll be a regathering a little bit later on. You saw the Teatro Romano Italica. Tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? There's amazing mosaics here as well. The Conjunto Archeologico di Italica, so just Conjunto. Yes, as mosaics exposed to the sky because it's so dry in these parts. In fact, if they were going to rename Sevilla, they'd probably call it Cracker. It's that dry. Dry as. 26.5 kilometres from home, but significantly 1900 metres, 1800 now to go until the intermediate sprint, and just about everybody is involved in the drive for the line. Attila Valter still holding station on the left-hand side of the road. Caden Groves has lined his men up. They've been called to order. They've emerged from the pack where they've screened themselves for much of the day. They've played it clever, Sean. They've kept out the wind.
Yes, well, it's not a difficult one to keep out of the wind today because the way they were going and the amount of wind was out there. But to stay in the peloton and, conserve as much energy as possible, that was always important. But we can see here, the GC teams are starting to appear. We can see Red Bull, we can see Visma Lease bike, and we can see Ineos there, EF Education. A lot of those guys are just looking after their leaders here, and also we have the guys who are going to, to go for this sprint here. So everybody is ready and waiting in case that there is a little bit of a push on after the intermediate sprinters. It'll not be a first time where the intermediate sprint and somebody tries something quickly. A team, a number of riders really drive it on. I think that's what the call is to a lot of the riders here from their DSs.
A few minutes to go. Ron McEwen rejoins us as indeed they start to bed themselves in here. Just tracing each other at the moment. Caden Groves just absolutely locked onto the back wheel of Wout van Aert, has been guided by Attila Valter just for now, Robbie.
Now it looks like they're trying to do it economically because Attila Volta is there for Van Aert, but no Eduardo Affini. So Van Aert from the front now, Groves with him.
Had to be. Van Aert take the bait. Groves absolutely staying there. Wants to come out. Has he come too early? Oh, Van Aert's got the dig here, but on the throw. Well, that sprint line really did. It was almost like ground rush, wasn't it, for a skydiver. I think Groves got there. We shall have to wait for a photo because the angle was not favourable. Let's put it that way. It's something we've got used to. Let's have a look. See, read it for us, Robbie.
Well, you'd see Groves. He broke out to his right, so Van Aert was sort of following the curve of the road, but giving himself a few extra centimetres to cover. And I think Groves might have just made the dive on time to get it on the line. It looked like he'd edged in front, Groves. As far as the teams go, they did it economically as far as the lead-out goes, but the two protagonists, they certainly put everything into that sprint, and Van Aert trying to sort of go long and fend off Groves, but Groves has just got that punch, hasn't he, that pure sprint power that lets him accelerate out of the wheel and make that extra effort.
Sean, deficit cut by a margin of 3, with 20 points going into Groves, if indeed we get confirmation that he crossed the line first. It's modest fare at the top, isn't it, of the points competition. Wout van Aert leading on 111, Groves on 105, who now takes himself to 125, and indeed 3 only. It's very tight.
Yes, it is tight, and it has been tight all the way through here, and we did see Groves there. He just waits off, and Van Aert takes it up that little bit early, because Van Aert is the one, the more power sprint, or the longer sprint is a better one for him. And you could see there, Groves, he has got that sprinter's, kick, and he just comes in the very late metres there and takes the maximum. And yeah, that is going to be a one in the finish as well. Van Aert is going to be thinking, how do I manage this one? Because if there's a straight out sprint, Groves looks to be the fastest one, so Van Aert maybe just has to take it up a bit earlier. If he can get Groves without teammates there, that would be the perfect situation where he has to maybe do a bit more. But yeah, that is a little bit of I suppose, a warm up for the final sprint.
It could also be the tactic of Wout van Aert to try and really take it out hard in the intermediate sprint, make Groves make a 100% effort, and then Van Aert rely on his powers of recovery. He might be able to just repeat that effort a little more readily than Caden Groves might be able to do, and it might level things up on this really flat run into the finish, which I would think favours Groves more than it does Wout van Aert. But I'm certainly not underestimating Van Aert by any stretch of the imagination.
Just passed by the La Giralda, which is the cathedral bell tower, incidentally, and at 97.5 metres tall. Back in the day, it was the tallest building on planet Earth. Well, yeah. That was in the 16th century, however. The final bell tower, the last bit, the topping off, 1568. And all the artisans that carved out those little gargoyles in the last and the rest of it, they signed those. Of course, nobody knows who on earth, not for many years, not till drone technology where you can see the signatures, who it was. Anonymous for, well, 600 years. That's artists for you. They do it for the love of it. And indeed, today it's kind of felt like that, watching a sprint stage. If you've been here from the beginning, give yourself a medal, because none of us have. 4 hours. 4 hours in the saddle, in the heat, Sean, as well.
Yes, well, we talked about that in the earlier part of the day, that this heat will have an effect. And the good thing is, it's a flat run in. A lot of the riders, haven't anything to do here in the end. There's no pressure. They just follow in the peloton and get through the day. But the ones, that really want to go for the stage win, it's important that you're feeling good and you got through the day quite well, that this really warm conditions not affecting you. And then the GC men as well, they won't have any problems here, but it's in the days to come we could see that.
Sevilla beckons 21 kilometres to go. I don't think there's going to be anything to upset the order, Robbie. They've already shown their hand, the two main men for this. We asked about sprinter regret earlier on in this race. I'm beginning to think that with so much of the first week at least being a bit of a sprinters fest, save for yesterday, which was magnificent, of course, that there won't have been some wistful thoughts amongst some fast men on this planet who think, do you know what, I should have gone.
Yeah, I think there'll be some teams sort of kicking themselves that they didn't bring a sprinter to this race, because they're getting ample opportunities. It looked on paper to be a vuelta that wasn't going to provide many chances for the fast men, but they've already had a couple, and today will be another one. There will be a couple more. Yeah, you've got to suffer to get anything worthwhile in life, and they're going to have to suffer and get over some climbs, but there will be some more sprints. But yeah, certainly there'll be some sprinters that have been left at home. I think, oh, I wish my team had picked me to come to this, and it could have been a really good chance to get a Grand Tour stage win. I think one of the biggest races today, though, you know, will be the race to the ice bath.
Yeah.
So even if you're not sprinting for a result, you'll be trying to make your way through the melee after the finish as quickly as possible to the team buses and plop yourself into the water while it's still cold and some other sweaty, salty teammate hasn't got there first and ruined it for you.
Do they share water? Well, of course they must do. You can't have a fresh ice bath every single time. Gosh,
yeah.
What's the
first guy can dip his head in it and wash his face off. The others be reluctant, I'd say. Or should be.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe your teammate warming it up in whatever way they choose fit. Anyway, we'll drift away from that. 19.4 kilometres from home. Another big turn. Yeah, roundabouts a go-go. I've been reminded by my mate Julian that it is highway engineers that design roundabouts, not town planners. Thank you, Julian. I had his voice in my head yesterday, a couple of days ago when I mentioned it. But we got plenty of them. They are sort of wide enough. And look at the wind blowing it as well, Sean, described by the cordons here. We've not exactly got a hoolie, but we've got something more than a stiff breeze at the moment.
Yes, there is a bit of a breeze there, but is it from the peloton passing at the speed they're doing, or is the wind is blowing that much? When you look at the hedges, the trees
they're
here,
billowing a bit.
They are moving a little bit, and yeah, that's probably the reason we see that there's a lot of teams and in line here for quite a long time now. Considering the running we have here, maybe that's the reason that this wind is blowing a little bit. And yeah, we know the director sportif, they're always on the radio. When you get to this point in the race, if there's any little puff of wind at all, they tell the riders, yeah, there's a risk, it could split a bit, the wind is blowing a bit in the end. And yeah, for that reason we see that the front end of the peloton was quite nervous quite a number of kilometres further down the road.
Well, we've had all these straight roads for hours and hours on end, and as we approach the centre of Sevilla, there are a number of direction changes, and that's what the director sportifs will be telling their riders too. Don't get complacent now, because there is a breeze, not blowing too hard, but just don't get yourself in an awkward position on the run-in. Next change of direction at just outside 16 kilometres to go. They take a 90-degree left. Then shortly after that, only a matter of a kilometre and a half, they turn back to the right. It's like a squiggly line on the way into Sevilla. And then, of course, we do that U-turn that brings them onto the final straight. That's about 3 kilometres long. And the wind should be giving them some assistance, sort of 3/4 in the back from the left-hand side. And that's where the opportunity lies to get a little bit tactical with your lead out along the right-hand side and just make everybody else, if they're going to pass you, come on the windy side on the left.
Yeah, we're across the Great River itself as we make we hit 4 kilometres to go. That's indeed where the cut-off point is today. The sprint point has been pulled back, so essentially the safety zone is now extended to 4 kilometres from 3 today, and I'm not surprised, because we have, as Robbie was saying, a double right-hander, which is essentially one curve because it comes in such a compressed fashion. Slightly less than that. I think it's a hand from one roundabout to another, which you often see. Could be a plaza as we come to around about 3.5 kilometres to go. Then it's more or less straight, save for a kink in the road with around about 300 metres to go. So you don't actually get a full sight of the finish line until you pass by that gentle, high-speed left-hander. The sort of turn where Rory McEwen would be going on the right-hand side of the road, knowing that there was nobody there, and everyone else was compressed against the barriers. Well, let's see how big that compression is today, and how many fresh legs and minds to go for it there are out there. I think there's a lot of riders here. I noticed Arbor Story, when he finished third behind Van Aert and Groves, raised his arms like he'd won it, Sean, because third place behind those two feels like a win, I imagine, to a fast man.
Yes, well, to get on the podium for a man like Aberasturi, it was a big performance, and he did talk about that as well against the rider he was up against. To do that result, he was very happy with it. But again today, you know, he will be up there, and he will be just hoping that he gets a real good run in, that he gets on the right wheels of the lead-out trains, because with the team he's got, you know, it's not going to be a case where he's going to have quite a number of riders to give him a very good lead-out. So he has to follow the other sprint trains and that sprinter, and hopefully get into the position in the final where he can have a good run to the line as well. And you never know. You know, we've seen it in the Vuelta in the past number of years, where those guys have won stages. They're not the best sprinters by any means, but they just get lucky, and you know, into a corner, maybe some of the other better sprinters get a little bit squeezed out at the left-hand side of the road. Maybe there's a problem there, and you're a little bit more room to go in the middle or go to the right-hand side of the road, and that's what you're hoping to you'll get on the way in here. But we can see here, you know, they're knocking it off again. I think it's in the city here, that's what they're concerned about as well. You know, maybe more furniture, all of that. That's the reason they were pushing on a bit as well there. But now, you know, for the moment it's knocked off again, but the moment it starts turning left or right again, roundabouts, as you can see, it just ups pace once again.
Yeah, they're marshalling them through on one side, and everyone's giving it and themselves a good deal of respect at the moment. So who's going to be making up the numbers here today? Arne Marit just eased off when he saw Van Aert and Caden Groves going for it. Nabara Story nicked through on that stage 3 into Castel Branco, and he was very regretful afterwards, and actually said, you know, I've come here to finish third behind Van Aert and Groves, and he messed it up because basically he eased off. Same happened with Van Eetveld yesterday, raised his arm at the top of the mountain. Roglic nipped in. You've got to be absolutely alive, Robbie, to your opposition, and indeed dedicated to your task as a sprinter, to keep just going. There's no easing off here, is there?
Yeah, well, that goes for everybody, sprinter or climber who's racing for a stage victory. You can't get complacent and think you've got the job done before your front wheel has breached the finish line, as we saw yesterday with Leonard van Eetveld. But just going back to what Sean was saying a few moments ago, when there's a lack of top-line sprinters in great numbers, like there's in this race, you've got Van Aert and Groves, and then there's a bit of a gap. There's a yawning gap, to be honest, with no disrespect to the others. There's also a great lack of lead-out riders. You've got Groves' Alpecin de Koning team. The rest, you've got Affini and Volta doing what he can for Wout van Aert. For the rest, there's no real lead-out men. There's no other lead-out trains. And there's a real mishmash going on behind sort of our top two guys of Van Aert and Groves. But that opens opportunities for sort of lesser-known names or ones that wouldn't directly spring to mind to get big results. I mean, think back to last year. Geoffroy Soup, stage 7, got the better of everybody and won himself a bunch sprint. The bearded man from Total Energy got the biggest victory of his career.
That was lovely,
left-hand side now, Pavel Bittner just being brought forward by his DSM Firmenich Postenel team. Again, they did this the other day. They started quite early, get him up there and give him the easiest ride possible, because they just don't have the firepower to lead him as a team at the front when things are really getting hectic. So the best thing they can do at the moment is just keep him protected, keep him out the wind, give him an armchair ride. Then it's up to him to try and slot in, maybe have one teammate who can help him, maybe two. Julius van den Berg, probably the man most likely to be able to position Bittner and try and get him on the wheel of either Groves or Van Aert.
Well, his declared lead-out
is
Martin Tusveld. Actually, he's said he's the man on duty. We'll see whether it is Tusveld or Van den Berg. Notice the Bahrain victorious as well. They are not necessarily working for Jas Sutterlin, who can go quickly on his day, especially when it's a bit of a mosh pit. But they're looking after Antonio Tiberi, of course, who leads the young riders classification after a stellar performance yesterday. Another one of these rather fetching swing bridges. Remarkable engineering. 12.8 kilometres to go. There are a few here with some lead-out help. Arne Marit has Vito Breit, and in fact the pair of them, it's kind of one or the other. They usually finish reasonably close, within close range of each other. And let's not forget, of course, Mr. Corbin Strong, because he does have a lead-out as well in Reisenberg, but particularly Riley Sheehan, not a bad lead-out man at all. Corbin will probably, I imagine, be jumping on other wheels. What those wheels are is anybody's guess. We're just going to have to wait and see. Will Vancek go for it again, Robbie? What do you reckon?
I wouldn't be surprised if he has a go. He's a guy who's always prepared to give it a crack on a stage that even mildly suits his capabilities. He's not a sprinter, no. But never know. He might decide, today's as good a chance as any. But I think his major opportunities are yet to come in this race, on those sort of lumpy stages. Get himself in a break and pull off a victory, something like he did when he really burst onto the scene at the UAE Tour, winning from a break and holding off the peloton.
Can we expect more from Brian Coquard? Sean, he would have, of all the sprinters, he would have sustained the climbs yesterday better than most.
Yes, well, he's a rider that he has the experience. He has been in many Grand Tours. He hasn't been that really good in the sprints up to now, but sometimes those sprinters, they can just pop up and really put up a good performance. And if he gets into a really good position as well, but in a straight out sprint against Van Aert and Groves, it's going to be difficult for any of them.
There are riders that kind of take a long time to get themselves up to speed, and then when they hit that speed, they're almost like they're on rails. I was thinking back about this earlier on today, and here at Steegmans, I think you were involved with that one, Robbie. Back
he was my lead-out man.
In 2008. But when he was on rails, there was no catching him, and he was my tip for the day that day back in 2008. Beers were on me. He did a fantastic job, but strange things can happen is what I'm trying to say if you go from distance.
Yeah, they can, and well, Steegmans, unfortunately for me in 2008, we were no longer teammates at that point. He was my lead-out man in the years before that. But yeah, he was leading out Tom Boonen on that occasion.
He was, yeah.
Well, in 2007, actually. In Ghent. That was 2007. He led out Boonen in Ghent, and he ended up winning the stage. And then he won on the Champs-Élysées the next year in 2008. I don't know, possibly a guy like Affini, if Wout van Aert is maybe feeling that Groves is going to get the better of him, he's always got the opportunity to let Affini go on the attack, go for a long-range, high-speed effort. And he's done it before and gone very close to getting one in the Giro in that way. So
crash.
That's a weapon. Oops, we've got a crash.
I heard the crunch.
Rui
Portuguese
Costa.
champion, is there, I'm afraid, for EF Education, taking a teammate out with him as well. That's a nightmare for them. I hope they're okay. Hate to see riders go down and stay down. We heard the crump. Let's have a look. You kind of know. Oh, dear.
Oh, a bump in the road.
Yeah, and plenty of it as well. And I think he was very lucky only to collect one. Unfortunately for him, it was his teammate Rui Costa. That is never a nice thing, but a little bump on a corner.
Sweeney.
Goodness me. Well, find out in a moment. It is Owen Dool.
Cool.
Yeah. There we are. Nightmare. Well, it's been it will have felt like a much longer day, this, Sean, as well. And I'm not suggesting there's any braid fade. That was a nasty bump right into a corner.
Yes, we could see there he just slipped off the bars, I presume, and lost his balance, and down he went. But it was quite a big bump there. We could see where the front end of the bike popped up quite strongly, and luckily that he was over to the right hand side. If he had been on the left hand side, and he could have taken a lot more with him. But I can see there, they're just going to get themselves together and just roll into the finish.
Unfortunately for them, this is outside, a long way outside the 4 kilometres to go marker, which explains why there's a lot of GC riders up towards the front, just in case of situations like that, Sean. They pulled back to 4Ks because as we race down to that point of 3.7 kilometres and the double turn, there's an urgency here for the GC men as well to stay safe. It's going to be elongated, this.
Yes, well, we can see here where, we're in the city now, and it's, not too difficult at the moment, but again, they're going to be turns left and right, as we see the previous one there when they were going for that left-hand turn. Anything go wrong, that's where you want not to be, and you can see the reason that the teams are controlling here. But still, quite large roads here, not a huge amount of central points in the road, so it's okay. But the riders are getting the orders here, keep to the front, keeping that top 25 riders, and we can see the battle is all the time to get into those corners in a good position.
Right hand side of the road, Ali Kron you think they might be looking after, but after Lenny van Eetveld's exploits yesterday, he will be the man that they want to make sure Lotto Destiny is in a good place, and Campanarts is there. Will he try and spring one, which he's given to doing? It would have to be a long one with about 3.7 to go after that double turn, and still this is not good, Robbie.
No, it's just a very long conversation with Rui Costa and the team there. He sort of went over the top of Oenduli. Didn't seem to fall too badly. I mean, they're always nasty, but yeah, quite curious to see him taking that long to get back underway. Another couple of corners coming up, 6.8 kilometres to go, 90-degree left through around about 3/4 of the way around it. 500 metres later, 90 degrees back to the right, which then brings them down to that sort of double-turned U-turn with just outside 3 kilometres to go.
This is not looking
Costa
good.
is not looking particularly like he's going to get going again.
No, in fact, he's nursing that left arm there, Sean.
Yeah, left arm or left collarbone.
Yeah. Well, they're looking at his elbow at the moment, but to be honest, no hurry at all. I hope he's okay. 7.4 kilometres to go. As Robbie was saying, we're on a race now for a sequence of turns. The first is 3/4 of the way around a roundabout, so we come down at, let's say, 12 o'clock, shall we? We go all the way around and exit at 3 o'clock. You'll get the idea. So here we go. We're going anti-clockwise, and... All right, 6, coming in at 6 and going out at 9. Yeah, you get the idea.
Turn the clock around.
Yeah, we do our best. Anyway, they'll come through this. This is the first that will start, kind of give us a little squeeze here, like standing on a tube of toothpaste. They shoot out the front and they get in trouble at the moment. Rui Costa has abandoned the race. That is a nasty, nasty moment, I'm afraid, and a real shame for those who love to see him, indeed, mixing up in a breakaway. Breakaways don't like him, but don't like being with him, because he can be a bully out there, but he's wonderful to watch, great entertainment, and sadly he is no longer part of the race. 6.6 to go then, so we're through that turn. There's a right-hander coming up, and yet again that means that the left-hand side of the road is going to be the favoured one. You open up the corner as much as you can. Our B&B hotels, they are here. Campanarts can't help himself but be on the pointy end. And at the moment, he's lost his teammates. If indeed he's on lead-out duty, he might be on a help yourself here, Robbie.
No, he just rode his teammate out of the wheel. He just dive-bombed for the corner to maintain position. And Leonard van Eetveld just thought to himself, that's a little bit too quick for my liking. And that's what you do need to be careful of, particularly in these large cities, racing on the city streets that carry high volumes of traffic. It might be nice and dry. You think, I can hit this really fast, but it's often quite slippery and really treacherous. So you just got to have your wits about you on these type of roads. And I think particularly with this U-turn coming up with just outside 3k to go, it'll be high speed on the way down into it, 2 90-degree corners back to back, and just got to make sure you keep the rubber side down.
Well, we've still got this right-hander to take, and with 6 lanes to play with, Sean, that's a bit too much space. You can get dive bombing.
Yes, well, if the speed is not high enough, of course, they will be dive bombing, and you can see the way it's not rapid at the moment, and riders all across the road here, so there is that opportunity and that danger as well if you're on the front, and it is always a concern.
Oh, Doyle has been through the tumbler, I'm afraid. And bad news for him is that Rui Costa, his teammate, is out of the race. He really did Superman down the left-hand side there. So we have dealt with that right-hander. We come back down towards this double right-hander that comes just after the 4 kilometres to go marker. It's going to be a crucial place to be. You saw the red jersey being guided up on the back, of course, of Primož Roglic, and indeed he's not going to be too far away from the point. There's 5Ks to go, almost arrow straight down to the double right-hander, and then we unleash the beasts. It'll be a question of just maintaining a good approach pace and then allowing yourself indeed a free hand a little bit later on. That does not look like Brian Kokar, but we will see. Jonas Akira is known to be a man who tries to skirmish up towards the front. He may well be a guiding light. Let's wait and see. You can see that here as well, the boys from DSM Firmenich for Pavel Bittner really mean business today. Watch out for Intermarché Wanty with Vito Breit leading in Arno Marit. They may swap duties today. They are indeed with their yellow shoulders, blue and white, just off the right-hand side of your screen at the moment. Movistar with Carlos Canal have ambitions, but all ambitions will be put in the burner as if it hasn't been hot enough today. And Caden Groves starts to light up, and they're starting to make little bagsying moves into those corners as this double turn rapidly approaches. There's the 4K marker coming up for us. That means the GC men are safe. Should there be any incidents, let's hope that there are not any. We're waiting for this double right-hander. Here's the first phase of it right now. The second phase of it comes very, very quickly. It's almost as one, as Robbie was saying. Here's your exit, bit of a squeeze, get through safely, and then start to sort yourselves out as far as the sprint is concerned. And right now, Primož Roglic, he may well fancy having a dig himself. Where is Wout van Aert? He's not going to be that far away, the green jersey, and Caden Groves locked with him. 3.5 to go, Sean.
Yes, 3.5 to go. We can see Wout van Aert is back there in about 10th position coming out of that corner, and you can see the width of the road here. It's going to be an important one now as we go. 3.4 to go. That the speed is quite high, because this is a problem. If a flush of riders come up on the left-hand side of our screen looking at it and crowd you into the barriers, then you could find yourself losing 10 or 15 places very quickly, and that's not what you want in this straight run to the line. 3 kilometres to go.
Guilherme in the bright yellow. We've got Paul Miguel for Kern Farmer. It's cagey, Robbie, for now.
Well, it is cagey because it's just so straight ahead with a very slight bend with around 300 metres to go. But this wide road straight ahead, it just enables teams with a lead out like Alpecin-Deceuninck stay a little bit cooler, keep the powder dry for longer, keep themselves organised. They don't want to run out of numbers for Caden Groves, leave him isolated on the front. But I think they'd really like to put him in the position that they had in the last sprint. Then it's up to him to get things underway on time, not get himself jumped from behind. But with such a wide open straight finish, if you can get a couple of teammates together, you can really do one of those ambush lead-outs, hit the front, come in flying out of the slipstream, out of the wheels, like you've been shot out of a cannon, and spring a surprise. It'll be a big wound-up sprint.
Here's Attila Valter just coming up. He's having a word at the moment with Wout van Aert. Come on, get him on wheel. He's on the left-hand side of the road. Wout says no. He's moshed in, actually not that far away. He's moshed in with Israel Premier Tech at the moment, and Corbin Strong, who's obviously got some belief today. Chain throw, I'm afraid, for Landa by the looks of things.
Puncture.
Yep, is it puncture?
Yeah, no problem, of course. He will be the same time as the group he's with, so no panic at all here. But we can see Alpecin-Deceuninck there in the middle here. They have quite a number of riders just holding off, and they will wait until we get into this final run and really blast it then and drop off Caden Groves.
Pavel Bittner's team just peeling off at the moment. Guilherme still making use of himself for Arkea B&B's in the bright yellow. Everyone else is now on a hit and hope. Kentin Pasha for Groupama Frassinger in the blue on the other side of the road. Xander de Pestel as well is also there for Decathlon AG2R. We see the green jersey starting to make his move. Brian Kokar is here. He's trying to lock onto his back wheel at the moment in the red and white of Cofidis. Long shot doing us no favours here with the trees, but a kilometre to go. Flamrouge has been dealt with, as Robert was saying, with 350 metres to go. That's where it unwinds, but look at this lead out. Best lead out train here, and Caden Groves is the captain of his destiny, potentially. Let's wait and see. Vito Brake with Arna Marit are here for Intermarché Wanty as well. They're on the left-hand side, leaving the gate open. Guglielmi starts to charge into that. Aberastori wants to get involved as well in the bright orange. He's trapped on the barriers, can't see the green jersey. That's because he's screened by a whole raft here of Alpecin de Koenig riders. They start to try and pick this one up. Guglielmi still, his ambition is now, I'm afraid, a run out. There is Wout van Aert. He's waiting for it. He's going to go early. That was the battle plan. Starts to hit now. Is it too early? Gross is out of position. Big pick up now for Pavel Bittner. He's starting to drive this one home. Any surprises? No, not at all. It's going to be the green jersey on the throw. Oh, it's close up between himself and Bittner. That was very clever work by DSM Firmenich. Post NL. Boxed in was Caden Groves. And that's a great day for Wout van Aert.
Well, it remains to be seen on the photo who is going to get that one. Bittner was in the front, but the battle was on. Wout van Aert trying to come back at the young Czech rider, but Caden Groves off a superb lead out by his team. He didn't want to go too early, got absolutely swamped. Wout van Aert going for the long one, dragged everybody else with him. And Caden Groves, he looked the wrong way when Wout van Aert was underway, and I think Bittner has actually got it. His teammates are coming across the line celebrating. I'm going with Bittner. I think he held off Wout van Aert, and what a finish from the young Czech. You watch from overhead, Affini, he goes early trying to lure out Alpecin de Koenig to just hit it with their last man a little bit too early, get Caden Groves on the front and isolated. Wout van Aert, he's poised left-hand side, third position. Affini and his teammate in the yellow on the right. He now swings away. Bittner's in the wheel of Wout van Aert. He now launches as Caden Groves was looking over his right shoulder, so he's really missed it there. Coquard in the left can't follow the wheel. Bittner comes out of the wheel of Wout van Aert. Caden Groves is really struggling to get up to speed. He paused for too long. Bittner over the top or not? Well, it's a throw.
Yeah, I think
that is a photo.
Just, but it's as declared. No result yet. This is going to be very tight. But Art fought back here. Bittner came out, started to gain ground, went onto his shoulder. It's on the throw. Goodness me, Sean, that from that angle, that looked like Bittner.
Yes, well, it's a very tight one. It will be an interesting one there, but we did see Groves here looking around all the time and, just checking where Van Aert is, and really just waits too long. He has to, take the incentive and go himself, because we're at the point where he can take it up. Van Aert gets the jump, and Bittner has the advantage in the slipstream of Wout van Aert.
Bittner's been declared. My goodness, what a drive that was. So brave to actually come out from behind Wout van Aert, who went long, as Robbie was saying. That was the battle plan for him. Caden Groves got swamped. Bittner had belief. He also had a very, very well accomplished and well executed lead out, and not least, of course, the lead out of Wout van Aert himself. It was on the throw. Bittner believed. Wout van Aert will still take the difference between himself and Caden Groves at the line, but what a finale that was. And here go the hugs. There's going to be plenty of these raining down upon him all night. What a performance.
Well, that's an incredible performance by Bittner, and he went really early out of the wheel of Wout van Aert. Van Aert went so early launching his sprint, and Bittner had tackled him straight away, came alongside, and you just saw them both in desperation. Bittner with a really early throw to the line. Wout van Aert threw his wheel forward at the same time, realised he wasn't there yet, had another throw at it, and now Bittner, he's got the good news, and his first win in a Grand Tour in Sevilla in the Vuelta, and over the top of Wout van Aert. What a moment for a 21-year-old.
We should have known, Sean, two-stage wins in the Tour of Burgos, and he's here now with a Grand Tour win.
Yes, well, he definitely came here with good condition, but again, he's up against, big talent here. But the way he manoeuvred his sprint here, we can see, he just followed Wout van Aert, and if you haven't got a team that can just drop you off at the right time, then you've got to do that, and he did that very well, and just that little bit in the slipstream, and then you come out of the wheel. But it was a powerman sprint between the two men who were just going to the line.
Thank you.
And very close to a photo finish, but this man Bittner gets it.
I want to see the photo. That was fabulous. What a day. Wow. Breathless in the heat here. We'll have a look at the result, which they're only just able to compile now, courtesy of the hyper slow-mo cam. But Bittner had the pace, he had the belief, he had the lead out as well, Sean. And of course, I guess you might say the last man that led him out was Wout van Aert. He helped himself.
Yes, well, as I said during the day, you know, these sprinters here that are coming, younger guys against bigger, more powerful riders, maybe more proven sprinters, you're always looking for the perfect lead out and the perfect run in, and this man gets it here and gets the stage win.
Bittner takes it ahead of Wout van Aert. Groves did extricate himself from the cave and came third, ahead of Kokar and Kung, your top five.
Good job, man. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Gotta love a bit of that, Robbie. There's always a day when you step into the spotlight.
Yeah, and it's been coming for Pavel Bittner. He's been riding really well over the last 2 seasons, particularly in the lead up to this race in the Tour of Burgos. He won 2 stages there and really frenetic sprints. And I liked what his team did for him today without a sort of a high-powered lead out a la Alpecin de Koenig. They just looked after him, kept him in the slipstream, kept him out of trouble towards the front of the race, and then dropped him off. He's on just behind Wout van Aert. Teammate now peels away. So he's able to find his way. He's just shouldered off Brian Kokar, so he's fought for his position. He's earned the right to put himself into Wout van Aert's wheel. And it's intelligent too, knowing that Wout van Aert is traditionally always a man who goes long in the sprints. We spoke about it after the intermediate sprint. He was likely to go to, really try and fatigue Caden Groves, and I'm really surprised that Caden Groves got fooled like that, looked the wrong way, missed the jump. But Pavel Bittner, he missed nothing. He had it all. There was a double throw for the line by both of them who in desperation. It's so good to see Bittner get his first big win.
Team, amazing moment now. You have arrived just now to the finish line to learn that your teammate Pavel has won. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's really incredible. I mean, we worked hard for it. We did it perfect as a team, and to see it all coming together is just amazing.
He's been so close these past 2 days, and today he won over Van Aert in such a long sprint.
Yeah, I mean, we know when it's flat that he is super fast, so we tried in the other days where there were really hard finals, and we knew today would actually be our biggest chance with Pavel to win the stage. And then to see it all coming together is just amazing.
Were you confident that he could win a stage in La Vuelta?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we did Burgos and he won 2 stages there, so we knew he was in top shape. So yeah, we just needed to make sure he had a clear run, and then we knew he could finish it off, and that's what he did. So I think we're all really happy about today.
Congratulations, and now find your teammates for the hug.
Yes, I will do. Thank you.
And we showed that delight, Sean. It's always wonderful to see a new face. And you know what? He went long. This was the moment with about 300 metres to go, possibly 250. And Bittner timed this absolutely beautifully. There was no holding back from him.
Well, we can see here he's in the wheel of Wout van Aert, and Wout van Aert has already kicked quite a number of metres back there, and he knows that you have to take it up with a Van Aert. He doesn't slow down. He's one of these powerful riders that can go all the way, so you need that distance to be able to come over him, but he had the power here today, and you could see the way he had to fight as well with Kokar there. He really had to shoulder him to keep the position and keep the wheel of Van Aert, and just gets it in the throw to the line.
First Grand Tour, first Vuelta, you're already a winner. How does it feel?
It's unbelievable. I mean, only a few weeks ago, a few days ago, I got my first pro win. So yeah, to get the win at my first Vuelta it's really, I still don't believe it.
It doesn't come by coincidence, because your team worked a lot for that. How were you organized?
Yeah, I think if we look at the whole year and the last few years, I think with DSM we did a big portion of work, and a lot of work went into this, a lot of people, and especially in the final, the whole team was working really, really good. And yeah, to beat then Wout in a long sprint, he's one of the best long sprinters in the world, it's just crazy.
Did you think you would do that, beating Wout van Aert?
I told the guys today, yeah, today we can really do it, guys. I really believe in myself, and yeah, then when the opportunity opened, I just opened my sprint and went full gas to the line, and somehow it went. So yeah, I guess yes, yeah.
You come from Czech Republic. It's not often that a Czech rider wins at La Vuelta. 11 years ago,
yeah.
The next T-bar, 10 kilometers from here.
Yeah, I got asked a lot of questions that it would be really cool to win. I was like, yeah, maybe one day I can do it, but to do it on the first try is just unbelievable, and I hope it's just the start of Czech cycling coming back to the top.
And the start of a great career for you as a sprinter, or more than a sprinter?
Hopefully, I don't know, I actually never really see myself as a sprinter, more as a classics rider, but I guess, yeah, I don't know, we'll see.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We will see, indeed. Of course, we've been talking a lot about Matej Vacek as well. Czech cycling is in a very, very healthy place and being given a massive boost by Pavel Bittner. He stands at 1.84 m. He's not a small man, but he only weighs 73 kilos. He is a praying mantis, and today